Welcome to Airchecks. Opening in 1875, the Crime Museum at Scotland Yard is the oldest museum in the world purely for recording crime. The name Black Museum was coined in 1877 by a reporter from The Observer, a London newspaper, although the museum is still referred to as the Crime Museum. It is this museum that inspired the Black Museum radio series, produced in London by Harry Alan Towers. From Jay Hickerson's The Ultimate History of Network Radio Programming and Guide to All Circulating Shows, the earliest U.S. broadcast date was January 1, 1952. 39 shows, from the full syndication of 52 shows, aired over mutual stations from January 1, 1952 through June 24, 1952 and September 30, 1952 through December 30, 1952. This may be the earliest broadcast of the series worldwide. It was later broadcast over Radio Luxembourg starting May 7, 1953. Radio Luxembourg broadcast sponsored programs at night to England. The BBC was state-owned and had no commercials. The shows were sponsored by Dreft and Miro, cleaning products. The series continued to be offered in syndication and was heard on AFR's broadcasts and in the US on NPR stations through the 1960s, 70s and 80s. Some shows were broadcast by the BBC in England in 1994. This murder mystery series was based on true life cases from Scotland Yard's files. Each episode was based on an item or items of evidence in the museum. Orson Welles hosted and narrated the shows. Mr. Welles opened each show slightly differently but followed a standard format. For example, the show, The Bathtub, opened as follows. This is Orson Welles speaking from London. Big Ben starts hymning in the background. The Black Museum, repository of death. Here, in this grim stone structure on the Thames which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a piece of wire, a chemist's flask, a silver shilling, all are touched by murder. Dramatic music following the opening, Mr. Welles would introduce the museum's item or items of evidence that was central to the case, leading into the dramatization. He also provided narration during the show and ended each show with his characteristic closing from the days of his Mercury Theatre of the Air, remaining obediently yours. Harry Alan Towers produced the series from scripts written by Ira Marion. Music was composed and conducted by Sidney Torch. The museum was not open to the general public. Its purpose was then, and still is, for police training, although it did receive a considerable number of famous people, including Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. It is currently used as a lecture theatre for the police and like bodies in various subjects of criminology. But, thanks to Mr. Towers and Mr. Welles, we can still get a glimpse of what secrets are housed in the Black Museum.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum, a repository of death. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a piece of wire, a chemist's flask, a silver shilling, all are touched by murder. Here's a bathtub. It's a familiar object. This is an old-fashioned one, a ball and claw-footed bathtub without plumbing connections. It's the kind our fathers and mothers knew about. Into this they poured the Saturday night water by hand. Some liked it cool. Others liked it hot.
There we are, dear. Is that hot enough?
If you think so, darling. Oh, you're the sweetest. I wonder how I had the luck to marry you.
Part of my job, dear, taking care of you. And one day soon, we shall have a tub with taps. One of the new ones. You'll see.
Well, today the bathtub can be found in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Here we are. Here we are in the Black Museum, Scotland Yard's mausoleum of murder. Here lies death. Like the ordered rows of markers in a military cemetery, the white cards of the black printing line the silent shelves, the cabinets, the crowded floor, each card identifying a means to murder. A lovely wine glass here, beautiful ringing crystal. Yet in that sound was terror. In this glass was poison and horrible writhing death. Now here we are, here's the bathtub. So innocent, even comical. Basis for 1,000 jokes, foundation for laughter, circa 1910. No plumbing attached, of course. One poured the water in from buckets and pitchers. Truly an effort, the use of such a tub as this. Definitely a matter for an interior, not for an exterior. Certainly not for a garden like this, where in the peaceful year of 1910, Edward Jones read aloud to his wife, Evelyn.
Friendship is constant in all other things save in the office and affairs of love. Therefore all hearts in love use their own tongues. Let every eye negotiate for itself and trust no agent. For beauty is a witch against whose charms faith melteth into blood. This is an accident of hourly proof which I mistrusted not. That's Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing, my dear. Like it?
You read so well, Eddie, darling. So well.
I do like it here, Evelyn. I wish nothing ever interrupted us. But, as the bard said, the world is too much with us.
You make that sound as if you were going off on another trip. Are you, darling?
I'm afraid so. That case for Mr. Carter, the Ming Dynasty cherry water bottle, remember? I've heard of one up north. Oh, dear, I wish I could run an antique shop without these interminable trips. But I suppose there's nothing for it.
Too bad. Poor Eddie, poor Evelyn, separated so often and for such long periods. But business is business, and a living must be made. Eddie bids his wife a fond farewell and proceeds on his way to a middle-sized city. And there he walks the street, enjoying the sunshine and the crowd, when suddenly...
Ed! Oh, Ed, darling. Oh, at last, after all these months. Oh, Ed.
Wait, what? Anne, oh, my darling.
Oh, Eddie. Oh, it's been so long and no word. I thought you might be dead.
Of course not, darling, like the bad penny. Why, I was hoping against hope I'd find you any minute. I went back to our place, but you'd gone. A new landlady, no information.
Oh, but what happened, darling? You never wrote, and I waited and waited.
Yes, it was an accident, darling. Blow on the head. Amnesia. Only a few days ago, I came back to myself.
Oh, my poor darling.
No matter, darling Annie. We are back together. Once again, we are husband and wife.
So that's the little game, is it? A wife in every city, is it? Well now, Mr. Edward Jones, what's the idea? What can this get you, besides a heap of trouble and stiff prison sentence? What can it get you?
There we are, Anne, my dear. I've signed mine. Now you sign yours. You see? Ladies are first, except in getting off trolley cars or signing wills.
Oh, Eddie, you are sweet. There we are. Now, oh, heaven forbid, anything happens to you, all you have is mine, and vice versa, if anything should happen to me.
Heaven forbid, Anne, my dear.
Well, apparently it can get you plenty. If your wife has plenty, and Anne was, well, decently off with an needy income from her father's estate, although she was not allowed to touch the principal. However, there was a proviso concerning her husband's rights, if and when.
I'm horribly upset about it, Doctor. Here she is, apparently in perfect health. She has an awful fit, and all she remembers about it is a slight headache. She's my wife, Doctor.
These things happen, Mr. Jameson, I can assure you.
Oh. So Eddie Jones is Eddie Jemison hereabouts. Ah, it's interesting.
Nothing. I found absolutely nothing physiologically wrong with Mrs. Jameson. She's in perfect physical health. Now then.
But how can I be, Doctor, when I have these terrible fits?
There are such things even we doctors don't know yet, my dear, such as the reaction of the human mind to great stress. And you've been through such stress with Mr. Jameson missing so long.
But what can we do about it, Dr. Margetson?
Oh, just rest, relaxation, quiet, peace. Most important, relaxation. Now, I'll prescribe a mild sedative each night before sleeping.
So simple, so easy, so diabolical, and so considerate. No, Anne, darling, you mustn't even fetch your own bathwater.
There we are, almost full. And nice and warm. Just right to relax in, just as the doctor ordered.
Oh, Eddie, I don't know why you do all this for me. I don't do half as much for you.
You do, darling, just by being. You know that, don't you?
No, I say it 100 times a day. Eddie, you're sweet.
All right, my dear. Now step in. I'll help you. Take care. The water may be hot, and the tub may be slippery. There we are, dear. That hot enough?
If you think so, darling. Oh, you're the sweetest. Oh, I wonder how I had the luck to marry you.
Part of my job, dear, taking care of you. And one day soon we shall have a tub with taps. One of the new ones. You'll see. Ready to sit down, darling?
Mm-hmm.
Quite a pair of lovebirds, Anne and Eddie Jameson Jones. No wonder the poor fellow could hardly contain himself some 30 minutes later.
I went out for a minute to make the tea. Doctor, how could she go so quickly?
It is strange, but certainly an accident.
I barely turned my back, just put some water on in the tea kettle. And when I returned, there she was, floating face down in the water. Doctor, can't you help her?
Calm yourself, my boy. Your wife is past help now.
Such tragedy, such tears, and a will by which Eddie came into something over 800 pounds. In 1910, that was a fair amount of money. Enough for a man to live on with his wife for quite some time, while he read Shakespeare aloud in a quiet garden.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May, and summer's lease hath all too short a date. Evelyn, how you stand for me for all my absences. I hardly know.
I suppose I love you, dear. You are nice. And you're a good provider. So until you come back, I'm always content to wait. Go on. Read some more, darling.
Yes. Yes, of course. Nor shall death brag thou wanderest in his shade, when in eternal lines to time thou growest. So long as men can breathe or eyes can see, so long live.
Nor shall death brag, the young man read aloud, but where were his thoughts? On his next trip? On the story he would invent? And which story? To which woman? His ever-faithful Evelyn, or young Libby, whom he took to wife some 2 months later?
So this is the bride, Mr. Jameson.
This is Mrs. Jameson. Isn't she lovely?
Oh, Eddie, stop it. We're only married a few hours, and you're embarrassing me already.
My deepest apologies, darling. Are our quarters ready?
Oh, they certainly are. I'll have my boy help you with the bags. It's not every night we have a bride and groom in this house, you know.
No, not every night. This promised to be eventful indeed, particularly if you knew Eddie Jameson Jones.
Oh, Mrs. Grundy.
Yes, Mr. Jameson?
I hate to bother you, but could we have enough hot water for a warm bath? My wife hasn't been well. Some kind of spell, almost a fit. Took her to a doctor yesterday.
Oh, dear. And so young she is.
Nothing serious, just needs relaxation. That's what the doctor said. She insisted on going through with the wedding, even though I thought it might be better to postpone it. So a good warm bath. Nothing quite so relaxing, is there?
I'll set the fire going right away. You shall have all...
Ah, yes. Aria da capo. Repeat the theme, this time with a variation. And the variation was a bag of tomatoes.
Oh, Mr. Jameson, I didn't hear you go out.
I just ran out while my wife was in the tub, picked up some tomatoes. Fried tomatoes are her favorite dish. And I thought, well, tonight or all nights, she ought to have them. If you don't mind fixing them, Mrs. Bundy.
It'll be a pleasure, Mr. Jameson. I'll have them ready with your dinner, never fear.
It's me, Libby, darling. I'm back. Libby! Libby, are you there? Good heavens! Mrs. Bundy, help! My wife! My wife is floating face down in the tub! She's dead! My wife is dead!
And today, you can see that same bathtub in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Yes, the girl was dead, floating in the bathtub, face down, just as Anne before her. And Eddie, he was stricken, heartbroken as a bridegroom ought to be.
My poor Libby. To die alone like that on her wedding night. So good, so sweet, so eager for life, and so in love with me. Even insured her life for me just before we married, as if she had a premonition almost.
£750 insurance. It's a comfortable sum. Man and his wife can live in their garden quite decently with a sum like that for quite a few months in 1910. But it seems one can grow a trifle bored, even with a garden and Shakespeare.
How do you feel now, dear?
A slight headache, that's all. It'll go away.
Evelyn, you've got to go back to the doctor or find a new doctor. A slight headache, that's how your fit started yesterday.
No, he's not trying the same thing again. But he seems to be. Of course, he's had two quite successfully accidental deaths in his life so far. Perhaps a third, but that's not possible. Or is it?
Almost ready, Evelyn?
In a minute, dear.
Better come while the water's hot. You know what the doctor said about relaxing? Hurry now, darling. It's steaming, but not too hot. All ready, dear?
All right, dear. There's not that much hurry. Oh, dear. Who's that now?
Wait for me, darling. I'll help you get in. The tub may be slippery. One day we'll have a modern tub with taps and hot and cold running water. You'll see. Now, don't try to get in without me.
All right, dear. I'll wait for you.
Yes? Are you Edward Jones?
I am.
We're police officers from Scotland Yard. We have a warrant for your arrest. The charge is murder. I must warn you that anything you say may be taken down in writing and used in evidence. Please come quietly.
No, Evelyn Jones never took that bath. She never had another fit, either. Though she sat in the courtroom for the entire trial. The trial of the Crown versus Edward Jones, also known as Edward Jemison.
May it please your lordship, gentlemen of the jury, This is a peculiar case. No one saw this man commit the crime of which he stands accused. Yet every circumstance, every bit of evidence points to the fact that this man stands justly accused and deserves proper punishment. Now, in the course of this trial, you will hear many things about love, about coincidence, about accidental...
Oh, yes, they heard many things, that jury, sitting so stiff and serious-minded in its box. Not the least was the opening of the famous defense counsel who held the brief for Edward Jones, also known as Jemison.
Nor will we deny that this man may have married bigamously, but he did love these poor women, and it was a far, far better thing he did in marrying them than to lead them astray and then leave them alone with remorse, as so many men have done before him. We deny that my client killed these poor women. We claim only that he was the victim of a set of circumstances and the interference of a busybody. Yes, a male busybody.
A male busybody? Well, perhaps. But how could a policeman, in the proper course of his duty, fail to check on so obvious a coincidence?
Yes, sir. We had a letter at Scotland Yard from a Mr. John Curtis. What were the contents of that letter, Sergeant? Mr. Curtis had noticed a brief announcement in the newspapers regarding the death of a young woman, a bride, by drowning in the bathtub. He wished to call our attention to a similar accident some time before. In both cases, the name was Jemison. You saw this letter yourself? I did. Is this the same letter? It is, sir. I offer this letter in evidence, your lordship, as Crown Exhibit A.
It went on like that, slowly, carefully, plugging all the holes as they went along. The details of a routine police investigation which suddenly had become a little more than routine.
Sergeant Mason, when you visited the scene of the first drowning, what did you learn? That the man known as Jemison had mentioned two wills. One by himself in favor of his wife, one by his wife in favor of himself. We checked the files of the probate court. The latter had been probated. We called on the lawyer involved. He had a copy of the other will. The man known as Jemison, the deceased, had quite a bit. And when you visited the scene of the second drowning, Sergeant? We learned that the man known as Jemison had mentioned an insurance policy in his own favor. We inquired of all the insurance companies and found the records. He had received some £750 following the death of the young woman.
The first point established. Motive. Money. Over 800 from Anne. 750 from Libby. Almost £2,000 in all. That's a substantial motive. The questioning of Sergeant Mason went on.
Now, in the matter of tracing this man Jameson, what did you do? Just routine, sir. We checked the mailing address at the insurance company and found it to be the same as the house where the second woman had died. There, we discovered a forwarding address, a postal box. We covered that box. I watched it myself, sir. And when this man known as Jemison came to open it, I followed him. He went first to an antique shop, then to his home. Having located him, I made some quiet inquiries and learned that he was known as Edward Jones. Well, that evening, having communicated with Inspector Wilson at the yard and having received a proper warrant, we placed him under arrest.
Very good, Sergeant. Now then, when you called upon Edward Jones, what did you find?
The woman who claimed to be his proper wife was waiting upstairs, sir, for him to help her into a hot bath. One further question, Sergeant. Is the man you arrested in this courtroom now? Yes, sir. He is the prisoner in the dock, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant. Thank you very much.
Oh, they'd been very thorough, all right. They had almost everything. They called Dr. Margetson, for instance.
Dr. Margetson, when you first saw Anne Jameson, what was her complaint?
That she'd been having fits and not remembering them.
Did she tell you this herself?
No, her husband did. He was quite insistent on it.
Did you find any symptoms of illness, sir?
I examined the woman very thoroughly. I found nothing. But that situation is not uncommon in certain types of epilepsy.
Now then, Doctor, when you were called to the house on the evening of June the 3rd last, what did you find?
The woman I had examined was floating face down in the warm bath and quite dead. The husband was extremely hysterical. I treated him for shock.
Did you sign this death certificate?
Yes, that's my signature.
What is certified as the cause of death?
Accidental drowning.
We offer this certificate in evidence as Crown...
They had the landlady who knew Libby Jemison, too. She testified, simply.
Oh, yes, sir. He moaned about the insurance policy. Cried all night, he did.
Bit by bit, piece by piece, motive, opportunity, proof of death by drowning, medical evidence. But one great piece of the puzzle remained, as the distinguished counsel for the defense asked.
Where, my lad, is the proof that these two regrettable deaths were anything more than coincidental accidents? Where, my lad, is the witness who saw my client hold these poor women under the water, or administer sedatives which caused them to faint in the water, or in any way contribute directly to their miserable death?
There was no witness. But there was a Scotland Yard inspector with a demonstrable theory.
If it please your lordship, 3 bathtubs have been entered in evidence as Crown Exhibits C, D, and E. Inspector Maurice Wilson of Scotland Yard has a theory which he wishes to demonstrate as a witness, and he requires the assistance of an expert. My lord...
The inspector took the stand, was sworn in. Then, to the amusement of the spectators, a young lady in bathing dress, testified to as an expert swimmer, was introduced into the proceedings. One of the tubs was filled with water, warm water. At this point, the prosecutor stated,
For the assurance of the court, we have a doctor in attendance. Now then, Inspector, if you please, you may leave the witness box and proceed with your demonstration.
Thank you, sir. It is our considered theory that the murders were committed as follows. You will remember that in each case, the prisoner reported he found his wife floating face down. It is reasonable to assume that had the women fainted while sitting or lying in the tubs, they would have been found floating face up. With this in mind, it occurred to us that with the prisoner's insistence on helping his wife into the tub, the procedure was something like this. May I, young lady?
Of course, Inspector.
Notice she is standing in the water. Now, prepare to sit down, please. Observe that she bends forward, grasps the side of the bathtub. I seize her ankles thus, and she falls forward on her face.
Doctor, please, Inspector, get her out of that tub. The girl's unconscious. Get her out before her lungs fill and she drowns.
Some hours later, the jury reported.
We have reached a verdict, my lord. We find the prisoner guilty of willful and premeditated murder.
Well, that same bathtub is where you'd expect to find it today. In the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
Eddie Jones, in spite of his common name, was an uncommon man. Some said he was quite mad. His own defense counsel stated later that when Eddie looked at him with his piercing stare, he felt as if the prisoner were trying to hypnotize him. This, of course, we'll never know. We can only wonder if those poor women were truly hypnotized by Eddie's eyes or merely by his charm and personality. In any case, one woman did not succumb to that charm for long. She was Eddie's real wife, the predecessor of Evelyn. This woman was swindled by Eddie, but found him out and sent him to prison for 2 years. Eddie swore to kill her. She fled to Canada when Eddie left prison that time. But she came back to England and was in the courts the day Eddie Jones was sentenced to hang. And now, until we meet next time, till we meet in the same place and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain, as always, obediently yours.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of souvenirs, where everyday objects, a candlestick, a china doll, a broom, all are touched by murder. Now take this button, this brass button, the symbol of a barracks parade ground, but this was not found on any parade ground.
This is interesting, sir. A brass button.
Very interesting, Sergeant. It's from an army uniform.
Today, that button can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Well, here we are, in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Shelf upon shelf of curious and repellent objects. The urge to kill, illustrated in many, many ways. Here lies death. Here in the echoing stillnesses of the long room, one stands and looks at violence, expressed by the exhibits that line the shelves, the tables, and the walls. Repellent they may be, but by reason of their association only, for most of these tokens of murder are very ordinary objects. It's a medicine bottle. The drug it contained was beneficial in small doses. But since a woman was forced to drink the whole contents and died shortly after, the jury called it murder. Here's a kitchen knife. No household is without one, but this knife was not used solely for kitchen tasks. It was found embedded in a man's heart. Now, here we are, the brass button. It is. It's an innocuous, ordinary brass button. This was found near the dead body of a woman. But come back with me to the beginning of this story, to a day some years ago on the common outside the Kentish village of Wayfield. A girl was sitting beneath a tree, busily sketching. She was too engrossed to hear the approach of a young soldier until he spoke.
Hello?
Oh. Hello?
Sorry. Did I frighten you?
A little. I didn't hear you coming.
Oh, I made enough row. You were so busy with whatever you're doing. What are you doing?
Sketching.
Can I see?
You'll probably laugh.
No, I won't. Show me. That's very good.
Do you really think so?
Well, it's fine. You must be the one they call the Swamp Girl.
That's what they call me in the village. Poor, routine, dull people.
You don't like routine ways of living, do you? From what I've heard, you're something of a rebel.
Am I? You seem to know a lot about me.
Oh, I've heard things.
What kind of things?
About how you live in an old shanty at the edge of the swamp and how you roam the common and sketch and paint.
You're well informed.
Well, people talk about you sometimes. I was interested.
And so you came down to see for yourself. What's the matter? Couldn't you find a girl in town?
Don't say that. I wanted to meet you, to talk to you.
And now that you have, will you please go away and let me work?
Oh, you can work any time. I'll go away soon, if you're nice to me.
Go now. I've no intention of being nice to you, whatever you may think.
Come on.
Get away. When you found out so much about me, you might have also found out that I'm not interested in men. Least of all, soldiers.
That's not very kind. Come here.
No. Go away.
Come
Go on.
here.
No. No, please, please don't hurt me. No, please. No!
A woman screamed and cried for help on the Wayfield Common, but there was no one within a mile to hear her screams. 2 days later, in the post office at Wayfield, a letter was returned by the postmistress.
Mrs. Riley?
Yes, Jimmy?
That registered letter you sent me out with, there was nobody about to sign for it.
Oh, wasn't the swamp girl at home?
No, Mum. I called out Miss Morgan, but there wasn't any answer.
All right. You can deliver it tomorrow.
Yes, Mum.
Her name was Jeanette Morgan, but people of the town called her the Swamp Girl because of her vagrant, strange way of living. The next day, Jimmy, the postal messenger, rode out on his bike to deliver the registered letter, but once again the Swamp Girl was not at home. Then on the way back, taking a shortcut, Jimmy found her.
Miss Morgan!
Jimmy saw only her legs, at first protruding from a bush, which had been meant to hide her. At first he thought she was asleep. But he didn't think so for long.
She's dead! I've got to get the police!
Murder transforms a little village like Wayfield. All work ceases. The people gather in small groups in the streets to talk about it.
Yeah, have you heard the news? There's been a murder.
Aye? A murder?
Yes, out on the common.
Who?
The swamp girl. They found her body.
I was rather afraid that poor girl would come to grief sooner or later.
Well, Vicar, you know how it is these days. No parental authority.
Ah, more's the pity. Be that as it may, the man who did it must be found.
You know, Bert, if young Jimmy Miles hadn't come upon that body like he did, it might have lain there hidden for months, even years. I wonder how it happened.
Well, now, the way I sees it is this.
Now in the bar of the local, they sipped their beer and discussed the sensation. Jimmy became something of a hero. He'd found the body and even now is being questioned by the London detectives from Scotland Yard.
This is Jimmy Miles, sir.
Hello, Jimmy. You found the body, I understand.
Yes, Inspector Gallico. Was she really murdered, sir?
Well, that's what we must find out. And you can help us.
Oh, really? How?
I believe you rode out to her shanty at the edge of the swamp to deliver a registered letter to Miss Morgan.
Yes, that's right, sir. She used to get a registered letter every month. I always took them out.
And she had to sign for them, of course.
Oh, yes.
Then you got to know her, I suppose.
Well, don't tell the postmistress, but sometimes I did stay and talk for a while.
Uh-huh. And what was she like?
Oh, she was nice, really friendly. People said she was a bit peculiar, but I never thought so. And she could draw, sir.
Now, think carefully, Jimmy. Did you ever see her with anyone, man or woman?
Oh, never, Inspector. She had no friends around here. She once told me so.
No friends, I see. Now, about this registered letter, was that the first time you had taken it out?
Oh, no, sir. I went out the previous day, on Monday, but she wasn't there.
Did you call out?
Yes, and I went round the common, to the places where she used to go and sketch. I knew most of them.
And she wasn't anywhere about?
No, nowhere at all.
What time of the day was this?
Well, I just left the post office just on 10. It's about half an hour's ride.
So you were out there by 10:30? All right, Jimmy. Thank you very much.
Is that all, Inspector Gallico?
Well, that's all for the moment. You've been very helpful.
A lucky witness, young Jimmy Miles. A break for Inspector Gallico early in the case. For with the evidence of the police surgeon, certain facts could be established.
What's your verdict on the post-mortem, Doctor?
Well, the cause of death didn't give us any trouble, Inspector. She was strangled.
What about the time of death?
That's not so easy. I'd say she died 48 hours ago, at least.
Wait a minute. That means before noon on Monday. It ties in, Doctor.
Good. But at what time before noon, I would not care to predict. The contents of the stomach indicate she'd had breakfast.
Then sometime between breakfast and noon, she met her death. And she was nowhere about 10:30 when the postal boy brought her her letter. What about that letter, Sergeant?
I have it here, sir.
Who is it from?
It's from Mrs. Morgan of Tunbridge Wells, her mother.
Money, I suppose.
£10, sir. And a plea to come home and live a normal life.
Poor Mrs. Morgan. Her daughter couldn't even die a normal death.
The pattern of the crime begins to make itself clear. The victim's identity is known. The approximate time and the cause of death is known. Now the hunt will begin for the killer.
Here is a police message. The body of a woman named Jeanette Morgan has been discovered on Wayfield Common. Evidence suggests that she met her death by strangulation sometime before noon on October the 19th. Any person who was in the vicinity of Wayfield Common on that day, or can give any information, should communicate with the nearest police station in order to assist in the search for the murderer.
And in this, the police will be aided by a brass button. That same brass button that today can be found in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
To a small cottage in Tunbridge Wells now go the detectives from Scotland Yard. To a house with the blinds drawn where a thin, bitter woman answers their questions in a strangely lifeless voice.
Yes, I knew. I knew it was Jeanette when I saw the newspapers.
Why didn't you get in touch with us, Mom?
Oh, I knew you'd get in touch with me if you wanted me. Besides, what business is it of mine?
But she was your daughter.
Was she? Jeanette's younger sister lives here with me. Works at a shop nearby. She's my daughter.
Yes, I see what you mean.
I warned her. I told her it had come to no good end, living that strange and unnatural kind of way.
Mrs. Morgan, we won't trouble you any longer, but could you tell us, did your daughter have any close men friends?
Men friends?
Yes.
Jeanette? I wish she had. But a boyfriend would have been too ordinary for her. She had to be different. She had to be the swamp girl.
I'm sorry.
Why did it have to happen to her? To me? Why? Why?
Good evening.
Good evening, Vicar. I'm from the police.
The police? I don't recognize you.
No, sir. You see, I'm not from the local police. I'm from London. And I'm down here in connection with the murder.
Oh, yes, terrible, yes. But how can I help you?
Well, you can help a good deal, sir. You see, the local police are pretty short-handed, and Inspector Gallagher has decided that our next move should be to make a very thorough search of the common, particularly round about where the body was found.
Oh, I see. And I suppose you want some help from my parishioners?
Yes, sir, that's roughly the idea.
Ah, very well, then. We'll help you in every way we can. You can depend upon us.
All right, Sergeant. Let's get on with the search.
Very good, sir.
You take Smart and work in from the road.
All right,
I'll
sir.
take Rogers and work in from the field side. I'll meet you by the ditch.
Yes, that'll be all right, sir. Here's a sketch, sir. It's a pencil drawing of that view across there, I'd say, sir.
Yes, it is. Unfinished, too. She might have been working on it. What else have you got down?
This is interesting, sir. It's a brass button.
Very interesting, Sergeant. It's from an army uniform.
Uh-huh.
Where's the nearest camp to Wayfield?
I believe there's one across the river, sir, about 2 miles away.
Inspector Gallico left his sergeant in charge of searching the common and went to the army camp to enlist the help and cooperation of the commanding officer.
Gentlemen to see you, sir, from Scotland Yard.
Oh, ask him to come in, will you, Captain?
Yes, sir. Will you come through, please? Thank you. Major Curtis, I'm Inspector Gallico from Scotland Yard.
Oh, how do you do, Inspector? Sit down, won't you? Well, now, how can I help you, Inspector?
I'm here to investigate the murder of Jeanette Morgan.
Oh, the Swamp Girl mystery.
Yes.
Yes, tragic business.
Major, not far from where the body was left, we found this.
An army button.
That's why I'm here.
I see. Well, I'd be glad to assist in any way I can, but permit me to hope that it wasn't any one of my men.
How many men are there in camp here, Major?
Well, at the present time, our unit's strength is 120. We're an engineer section, as you may know.
120 men, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I wondered if any of them has a button missing from his tunic.
Well, if you wish, I'll order an immediate inspection.
Not yet, sir. You can assist me in another way first.
Oh? How, Inspector?
Well, I want a list of all those absent from camp on Monday morning.
Oh, that should be easy. There's no leave on any week morning. If anyone was away from camp, it must have been for a special reason.
Anyone at all, between the hours of 7 in the morning and 1 o'clock.
Well, the adjutant can help us there. I'll get him to make out a list of all those away from camp on Monday morning immediately.
The commanding officer was away a short time, and on his return he brought with him a piece of paper containing a list of names. He gave it to the London detective.
Yes, there you are, Inspector. 5 men were away from camp during the time you asked about.
Sergeant Willis, A Company.
Yes, he's our caterer at the present time. We're understaffed, of course. Sergeant Willis and Private Fields were in town with a provision truck.
They were together?
Yes, we could always check that with one or the other.
I don't think I'm very interested in those two.
Oh?
What about Private Liston, B Company?
Oh, he's the unit driver. I sent him into town shortly before noon. On a private errand.
Shortly before noon, Well, that leaves 2. Corporal Paul Ferris?
Oh, he's our mailman. He leaves every morning at 8 o'clock and drives the mail truck in to pick up the unit mail bag.
From the Wayfield post office, I suppose?
Yes.
What time does he generally return?
Oh, sometimes by 9. Though on occasions he has to wait for registered mail, you know. I've even known him to be held up as late as 11 or even 11:30.
Would anyone know what time he returned on Monday?
I'll find that out for you.
Now, this last man, Private Williams, A Company.
Yes, if you ask me, he might be your man, Inspector.
Oh, why, sir?
Because he was absent without leave. From 900 hours on Monday morning until 1400 hours.
From 9 till 2?
Yes.
That's interesting. I'd better see him. And the postal chappie.
I'll have them paraded. Corporal Ferris, Private Williams, this is Inspector Gallico from Scotland Yard. He has some questions to ask you both.
Thank you, sir. Corporal Ferris, we'll take you first.
Yes, Inspector.
What time did you leave camp last Monday morning on your mail run?
At 800 hours, sir.
And what time did you return?
Well, if I remember correctly, the mail was brought round rather late that morning, Corporal. Yes, sir. I was just about to explain to the inspector. I had to wait for several registered letters.
What time did you actually return?
Shortly before 1100 hours, sir.
Thank you, Corporal. Now, Private Williams. You were absent without leave throughout Monday morning.
Yes, sir.
Are you able to give a satisfactory account of your whereabouts?
I'd prefer not to, sir.
Private Williams has consistently refused any explanation of his conduct, Inspector.
Oh, that's rather unwise, Williams. If you have an alibi, you'll need it. This is an investigation into murder.
Murder? I didn't do no murder. I was with me girl in Wakefield.
Ah.
What's her name?
Hey, Susie Walker, 9 High Street. You asked her if I wasn't there. Oh, I didn't want to get her into any trouble, you understand, that's all. But murder? Oh, I don't know nothing about the girl who was killed. Honest, I don't.
Well, we'll check your statement, Williams. I've finished with them now, sir.
Corporal Ferris, Private Williams, dismiss.
Inspector Gallico drove into Wayfield to number 9 High Street.
Oh, no. Susie wasn't out with him that day. I remember it distinctly. She went over to see her girlfriend at Kenbury. Well, you can ask her yourself.
Susie Walker was a small, frightened girl, the counterpart of Private Williams.
Oh, Inspector, I hope he hasn't done anything wrong up at the camp in not telling them where he was. Oh, that'd be terrible. He wouldn't tell a lie, I know that. I'm sure of it. You see, we'd had a quarrel, and he wanted to see me. I didn't dare let Mother know, so I made up a story about it.
She confirmed his alibi, and Gallico went next to the post office to interview Mrs. Riley.
Just one inquiry I'd like to make, Mrs. Riley.
Oh, anything at all, Inspector. Anything. To think of that poor girl. And my Jimmy Miles finding a body.
Mrs. Riley, can you recall offhand whether you had any registered mail for the Army unit on Monday?
Registered mail on Monday. Well, I couldn't remember offhand, Inspector, but I'll have it here in the book. Wait a minute and I'll look it up. No, there was nothing on Monday. There hasn't been a registered letter for the Army since last week.
Then the postal corporal wouldn't have been delayed on Monday morning.
Oh, not him. He was in for his mail bag and out again quick as you like. Didn't even stop for a chat. I remember that now.
What time would he have left here, Mrs. Riley? Can you give me any idea?
I can give it to you right on the dot. It's come back to me quite plainly. We open at 8:30. Corporal Ferris was here waiting when I arrived to open up.
8:30. And he didn't stay?
No, not more than a few minutes.
The inspector picked up Sergeant Worthington, and together they drove back to the Army camp. A few orders from the commanding officer, and Corporal Ferris was paraded once more, and his gear searched. At the bottom of his kit bag, they found what they were looking for.
Here we are, sir. A battle jacket with one button missing.
And it matches, Sergeant.
Ferris, what have you got to say about this? This is crazy, sir. I don't know anything about it.
She was sketching, wasn't she, Ferris? She drew a pencil drawing of you, isn't that so?
You're bluffing. She didn't do any drawing of me. It was a landscape scene.
A landscape scene, yes, so it was. And that fact has never been mentioned in any of the papers. Only the sergeant and I knew that, Ferris. And the killer.
Paul Ferris was taken into custody and charged with the murder of Jeanette Morgan, the swamp girl.
Silence in court!
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you have heard the facts in this case as related by the witnesses which have been called, both by the defense and the prosecution. The prisoner stands before you accused of the crime of murder, a particularly brutal murder, a murder without motive. But lack of motive is not necessarily a defense. It is for you to decide whether the facts which you have learnt during this case, not only the words spoken by the witnesses, but the mute testimony of the material objects placed before you, justify your verdict, which must be beyond all reasonable doubt.
The brass button and a slip of the tongue led to his downfall. Today, that brass button occupies a place of honor in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
The picture was completed when the tracks of a vehicle were found some 50 yards away from the scene of the crime. The tracks were identified as those of the mail truck, of which the driver had been Corporal Paul Ferris. The defense did their utmost to prove insanity, but the jury were in little doubt that the man was sane, and that his advances repulsed, he'd strangled the swamp girl to death. They took 17 minutes to find him guilty, and the brass button which had led to his arrest was Exhibit A on the courtroom table, from where at the end of the trial and the pronouncement of the inevitable death sentence, it was taken to its present resting place in the Black Museum. And now until we meet next time in the same place and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain as always obediently yours.
The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles, is presented by arrangement with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Radio Attraction. The program is written by Creswick Jenkinson, with music composed and conducted by Sidney Torch. Produced by Harry Allen Towers.
This is Orson Welles speaking from London. Here in the grim stone structure in the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of souvenirs. A warehouse where everyday objects, a hammer, a suitcase, a shirt button, all are touched by murder. You take this canvas bag.
This canvas bag might give us a lead, sir. What's that writing on it, Sergeant? It's the name of a local merchant, J. Gregory, Northampton.
Well, today that canvas bag can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Well, here we are in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Yes, here lies death. All the ways and means of death. Guns, of course, abound in plenty, but there are other simpler objects, things that were never meant for murder. Now, this gold trophy. A famous sportsman climaxed a great career by winning this. Later, it was an exhibit in his trial. It was proved he had used it to batter a man to death. Here's a knitting needle, perhaps used to knit for absent friends, for children not yet born. And it was put to more lethal use, to end a life. Here we are. Here's the canvas bag. It was once a bag used to hold provisions in a Northampton grocery store. Later on, it became more famous, but we anticipate. Let's begin the story not with a canvas bag, but with a certain young woman who at her home in Birmingham was packing her suitcases.
Here's another dress, Mary.
Oh, thanks, Mother.
And your slippers.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that must be all.
Let's just have another look round. You don't want to forget anything.
No, that's right.
Oh, here you are, just as well I looked. Some stockings.
Oh. Well, I think that's all.
Yes.
I'll just lock my suitcase.
Mary?
What, Mother?
Are you sure you'll be all right?
No, of course.
Well, it seems such a strange arrangement, you going all the way to London alone.
But what's strange about it? Tom's working in London, saving for our passages to Canada. He can't come to fetch me.
Travel all that way alone. Oh, Mary, let me come with you.
No, Mother. I'm not a child.
You're an almost married woman, but that doesn't mean your mother still can't worry about you.
Mother, really? Look, I'll be perfectly all right. Tom and I are getting married when I reach London. A month later, we'll be on our way to Canada.
And we'll lose you. It's so sad. You'll write as soon as you reach London, won't you, darling?
Yes, of course I will. And don't worry, please. I'll be all right.
A girl leaving home to get married, an anxious mother. Nothing very new about that. Except that the girl never went to London. The following day, her train arrived in Northampton, where she was tenderly greeted by a charming man some years older than herself.
Hello. Hello. Here I am, Mary. My dear Mary.
Oh, darling. I've been waiting here for a moment. I thought you...
What, that I might have deserted you? Hardly, my sweet. Did you have much trouble with your family?
Yes, a little. Dad was anxious, and you know what Mother is. She worries terribly.
Yes. You told them the story about meeting Tom in London.
Uh-huh. And they believed it.
Oh, good.
Oh, darling, it's wonderful to be with you.
Come, Mary. I found lodgings in St. John's Street.
Oh, good.
But listen, since you've told your parents you were meeting Tom Reynolds in London, we might as well continue the deception, eh?
How?
Well, to the landlady, you'll be Mrs. Reynolds. And I, of course, shall be Mr. Reynolds. It might be better if you called me Tom.
The landlady found Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds a charming couple, so devoted, so very much in love.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm Mr. Reynolds. I wrote to you about a room.
Oh, yes, Mr. Reynolds. I was expecting you today, just like you said in the letter.
And this is my wife, Mary.
Pleased to meet you, Mrs. Reynolds. I expect you'd like to see the room right away.
Yes, I would.
Well, if you'll just follow me. There's only one flight of stairs.
Let me carry the bag, dear. It's too heavy for you.
All right.
Have you any idea how long you'll be staying, Mr. Reynolds?
Well, I can't tell you at the moment. It depends on circumstances, doesn't it, sweetheart?
Yes, dear.
Mr. Reynolds. I didn't know it was so late.
Well, my wife's asleep, Mrs. Marsh. I thought I'd just pop in to tell you that we're leaving next week.
Leaving?
Uh-huh.
Well, isn't that rather unexpected? I was talking to Mrs. Reynolds only yesterday, and she said
Yes,
that she...
but you see, I've had some news from friends of mine in Canada.
In Canada?
Yes. We're going to Canada, Mrs. March.
Oh?
We're leaving from Liverpool next week.
Oh, that will be nice for you, Mr. Reynolds, and for your sweet wife, too.
Yes. Oh, but there is one other thing.
Huh?
I'd be very glad if you wouldn't say anything of this to my wife. You see, she's not quite sure that she really wants to go to Canada, and, well, I think it'll only upset her if anyone talks to her about it.
Of course. I wouldn't breathe a word, particularly since you've asked me not to.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Marsh. We'll be giving up our room on Friday.
Uh-huh.
I'll arrange for a car to call for the luggage early in the day.
So considerate, the landlady thought. Such a gentleman. On Friday morning, she said goodbye to the couple with reluctance. At least she said goodbye to Mr. Reynolds, who explained that his wife had gone ahead to the railway station. But even the nicest of lodgers are only a passing memory in a landlady's mind, and she might never have thought of the young couple again if it hadn't been for the events that occurred some weeks afterwards. On the high road from Rugby to Northampton, two men were walking home after work.
Well, Bert, what do you think of the team's chances on Saturday? They'll want to be better than last week, eh, Sam? Yeah, I should say so. Hey, look down there in the ditch beside the road. What do you see? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, it looks like a canvas bag. Ah, well, there's something inside it. Ah, well, what's that all over it? Lime, isn't it? Oh, probably a dead dog. Come on, I'll buy you a pint. Yeah. Hey, ain't no dead dog. Bert, look, will you? An arm. I can see it plain. Oh, crikey. Come on, Sam. This is for the police.
The local police recovered the body and Scotland Yard was summoned. Inspector Courtney, accompanied by Detective Sergeant Finlay, arrived in Northampton. They met the doctor who had conducted the post-mortem.
The body was that of a woman, Inspector.
Have you any idea of her age, Doctor?
Youngish. I'd say in her 20s. In height, a little over 5 feet. Slight build.
And in what state was the body?
Dismembered and partially decomposed.
And the cause of death? Have you any idea about that?
There's no way of telling, Inspector. The only thing you can take for granted is that she was murdered.
The yard men had a dual task there. They had to track down the murderer, but first and foremost, they had to find out who had been murdered. They set out to examine the evidence.
This canvas bag might give us a lead, sir.
Yes. Now, what's that writing on it, Sergeant?
It's the name of a local merchant, J. Gregory, Northampton.
Yes, the name's clear enough. Luckily, the lime didn't rot it away.
As I'd say it was meant to, sir.
Yes, I'd say so too, Sergeant. I think we'll call on Mr. Gregory.
Was this a lucky break early in a difficult case? It seemed not. For when the London detectives interviewed J. Gregory in his Northampton warehouse, the merchant could give them little help.
Yes, it's my bag, all right, Inspector. No mistaking that, but how did it get in there?
Well, we thought you might be able to tell us that.
Well, I assure you I can't. These canvas bags are used for transporting groceries between this warehouse and my several shops in the town.
And they're, handled by your employees?
Yes.
Are they ever given out to the public?
Oh, no, they're not.
Were you aware that one was missing?
Well, hardly, Inspector. I have upwards of 100 of these bags and a lot more to do than count them.
Yes, of course, yes. But now, you understand the gravity of this situation?
Yes.
A woman has been found dead. Murdered.
Murdered?
Her body wrapped in one of your bags.
Inspector, I can only assure you I know nothing whatever about it.
At this stage, Mr. Gregory, not knowing the identity of the murdered woman, the bag is our only clue. Now, you do appreciate that?
Yes, of course.
Sir, that I'd like to talk to one of your employees who might have handled these bags and who might have been in the position to take one or even give one to somebody else.
Inspector,
I'll see to it my staff are available for you. As a matter of fact, you can begin with my warehouse manager, my own brother.
Oh, yes, thank you, yes.
Wait, I'll get him. George? Huh? George, come here, will you?
Presently, the obliging Mr. Gregory returned with his brother, the warehouse manager. He, too, was courteous and polite to the detectives, and only too ready to answer the questions they asked him.
Now, where do you live, Mr. Gregory?
In Birmingham. 7 High Street, Birmingham.
And are you married?
Yes. Wife and 2 children.
And you live at home?
Well, sometimes I stay here at the warehouse. You know, because of the distance involved in travel, you understand?
Oh, yes, perfectly. Now, tell me, have you ever lent or given anyone outside the firm one of these canvas bags?
Well, I don't like to mention it, but...
Well, go on, George. Tell the inspector whatever he wants to know. Did you give away one of these bags?
Well, yes, as a matter of fact, I did, John. I know it was against regulations, but... Well, a tramp came in one day asking for some scraps of food, and...
Yes, and...
Well, I felt sorry for him. You know how it is.
Yes, quite.
I gave him a couple of tins and, well, a canvas bag to carry them in. Sorry, John, but that was the only occasion I have given one away.
Now, could you tell me, how long ago would this have been?
Oh, well, I suppose about 6 weeks, perhaps a bit longer. I'm afraid I can't remember the exact date.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Gregory. I don't suppose you can help us in this matter of the murdered woman. I mean, you've no idea who it might be.
Well, none whatsoever, Inspector. I'm sorry.
Well, thank you very much indeed, gentlemen. Good day to you. Good day.
The inspector left the warehouse deeply disappointed. It seems that the trail led nowhere. For the inspector believed this story of the tramp that George Gregory had told him. There's no reason why he should not have believed it. But today, evidence that proved the lie can be seen in the Black Museum. There are hundreds of women reported missing every year throughout England. Now to the local police stations throughout the land, the messages went out in a long and slow search to find the identity of the murdered woman.
Desire information on any woman reported missing within past 2 months. Special attention to young woman about 5 feet in height, of slight build, well dressed.
In answer to your inquiry, we've checked all missing persons approximating to the description given in the Glasgow area during the last 2 months. There are 3 missing persons whose descriptions might fit the one given, and further investigation is being made in each case. I shall report further within the next 7 days.
Hello, sir. This is Scotland Yard. We've been looking into your inquiry, and we find that in the London area there are 27 cases of missing persons. That would seem to justify investigation in relation to your inquiry. From preliminary inquiries, 13 of these cases can already be discounted. On the remainder, further inquiries are still being made. We'll be in touch with you later, sir. Goodbye.
The reports came flooding into Scotland Yard. The leads faithfully followed. Dead ends, all of them. The investigation into murder was bogged down because nobody knew who had been murdered.
Here's another one, Inspector. People by the name of Wilson in Birmingham. Worried about their daughter.
Oh, I never knew there were so many youngsters who run away from home. Well, still, have it checked, Sergeant.
Right, sir.
Another patient inquiry begins. When did your daughter leave home? Where was she going? Have you heard from her? The questions were asked, the answers were written down, and the result was sent to Scotland Yard.
Wilson, yes. Number 9 High Street, Birmingham. Left for London to marry a young man named Tom Reynolds.
Seems like she didn't get there, sir.
Yeah. The family had a letter from Reynolds, just a sort of friendly note, no mention of the girl.
I understand young Reynolds went to Canada, sir. He was once engaged to the girl, but they broke it off.
Oh, yes?
The next thing, when he was in London, the girl had a letter from him asking her to marry him and go out to Canada.
Yes, but did the family see the letter?
No. It was all pretty hurried. They were upset, but she seemed to be able to get her own way.
Oh, I've heard this kind of thing before. Now,
I wonder who the man was.
Not Tom Reynolds, that's certain. His letter to the family is enclosed there, sir.
Oh, let's see it, will you? Yes, wait a minute. Now, Rough Crossing, how is everyone? Misspelled neighbors. No, he doesn't mention her. Now, what was her name?
Mary, sir.
Mary Wilson, 9 High Street, Birmingham. Sergeant, that seems familiar.
To me, too, sir. I can't quite place it,
Wait a minute, I've got it.
What, Inspector?
George Gregory, that warehouse manager. His address is 7 High Street, Birmingham.
Number 7? Well, that means he lives next door.
Patience had paid off again. Careful and painstaking methods had given them a new lead, or rather, the renewal of an old lead. For the canvas bag had first led them to the Gregory warehouse. The detectives went back to Northampton, back to interview George Gregory.
Mary Wilson, Inspector? Well, of course I knew Mary Wilson.
Now, tell me, when did you last see her, Mr. Gregory?
Oh, some time ago. She went to Canada, you know. She married a young chap named Reynolds.
Yes, but did she marry him?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, she did.
You said, I knew Mary Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
Why the past tense?
I don't know. Well, don't you always use the past tense when you're not likely to see a person again?
Oh, you don't think you'll see her again?
Well, Inspector, with her married and living in Canada, that'd hardly be likely, Inspector.
George Gregory seemed at ease. His answers rang true. It could be nothing but a strange coincidence. Inspector Courtney gave certain instructions.
I want a cable sent to Tom Reynolds in Canada. Find out if he married Mary Wilson or not. The odds are he's still single.
Then Courtney went to Birmingham, to number 9 High Street, where he talked to Mary's mother.
I don't want to alarm you, Mrs. Wilson, but I'm from Scotland Yard and I want to make certain inquiries.
Scotland Yard? Oh, my Mary's done nothing wrong, has she?
Of course not, no. Now, tell me, Mrs. Wilson, do you really think your daughter might have gone to Canada with her young man?
Oh, I don't know what to think, sir. I was always puzzled. I mean the way she seemed to patch things up with Tom.
Yes, did you question that?
No, I didn't say much. I was glad, really.
About her marrying the young man?
Yes. Well, you see, for a while I was worried. There was another man she seemed to like, but too much, if you know what I mean.
Oh, you disapproved?
Oh, Mary was never one to take criticism, but I didn't like it, I can tell you.
Was the other man older?
He was, old enough to know better. Him with a wife and 2 children of his own. I tell you, I was relieved when I thought Mary was going away to marry Tom Reynolds.
Now, there's one more question I must ask you, Ma'am.
Yes, Inspector?
The name of this attentive gentleman.
Well, I don't like to make anything of it, mind.
No, but I'd like to know his name.
Well, he happens to live next door, and his name is George Gregory.
We've had a reply to your Canada cable, sir.
Okay, Sergeant, go ahead and read it.
Tom Reynolds is living in Ottawa. He's a bachelor. Last time he saw Mary Wilson was in Birmingham 3 months ago.
What about his letter from London?
There was no letter from London.
It was beginning to add up. Point by point, link by link, a chain of circumstantial evidence was being forged by the patient police.
I think he's our man, Sergeant.
And imagine it, sir. He's been here under our noses since the very first clue you picked up.
Yes, the canvas bag. Let us write to him. But we haven't tied it up yet.
What's the next move, sir?
Mary Wilson left for London to meet Reynolds.
Or so it seems she told her parents.
Yes, it seems more than likely, sir, that they came here. So they must have lived somewhere, she and the man she met.
Now the detectives went through the town, front streets and back streets, fashionable hotels and cheap boarding houses. They went wherever there was a sign, rooms to let.
Well?
We're from Scotland Yard, ma'am. We're inquiring about a young couple who might have stayed here some, 6 weeks to 2 months ago.
No, not here. Only take regulars. Had all my boarders for the past 12 months.
Thank you, ma'am. Sorry to have troubled you.
They ran the whole gamut of landladies. The suspicious landladies, the mean, the garrulous landladies, the kind, the generous, the curious. Then in a lodging house in St. John's Street, their work paid off.
A young couple? Yes, I've had a few. What was their name?
We're not sure what name they might have been using.
Oh, you mean Crooks? Well, let me see. Oh, it couldn't have been that nice young couple, Mr. and Mrs. Reynolds. Now,
What was that name?
Reynolds.
Tom Reynolds?
Yes, I believe it was. Such a nice man. Oh, and his young wife was named Mary. She was awfully sweet.
Mrs. Marsh, can you give me a description of Mary Reynolds?
Why, yes, I think so. Short, about 5 feet tall, brown hair, rather pretty.
Yes.
Not much help, I'm afraid. I can't remember any other details.
Oh, you helped a lot, thanks. And the man?
Tall, dark hair, and a small mole on his left cheek, older than her. Oh, but he was very nice indeed. Oh, surely they couldn't have done anything wrong.
Mrs. Marsh, can you, I want to attend the police station tomorrow morning at 10?
Me? Why, sir?
Well, we'll be having an identification parade at 10 sharp.
All right, quiet, everyone. I've got together a group of 8 people, Inspector.
Thank you, Sergeant. Mrs. Marsh, I want you to try and identify the man you knew as Tom Reynolds.
All right, Inspector, but really, I know we and his wife went to Canada.
Nevertheless, if you don't mind, just walk slowly down the line and examine each man.
Eight men. A couple of detectives, 2 men taken out of the cells, 1 recruited off the street, and in the middle of them, a protesting, indignant George Gregory.
It's not this man. Nor this. No, not him either. Why, Mr. Reynolds!
Gregory, grab him, man! I got him!
There were enough policemen present to overpower the hastily departing Mr. Gregory, who was immediately arrested on a charge of having murdered Mary Wilson. Today, the evidence that brought about his downfall, the canvas bag that first directed police attention to him, occupies a place of honor in the Black Museum. George Gregory killed the woman, he said, because she was too much in love with him to let him go, but he couldn't afford the scandal that might arise if he continued his association with her. Not a very nice reason, but then, the reason for murder seldom are. Anyway, George Gregory was tried and convicted, and paid for his crime one morning at 8 o'clock. And now, until we meet next time in this same place for another story about the Black Museum, I remain, as always, obediently yours.
This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum. Here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide. A warehouse where a parchment lampshade, an automobile tire, a canvas tarpaulin, an umbrella, all are touched by murder. Here's a dictionary. It's a familiar object. French into English, English into French. Every high school student knows what these books are like. Word here, phrase there, merci, thank you, merci. And of course, a use common to most young men in countries not their own.
Je t'aime. Je t'aime.
Oh, you sound so passionate, Jules. What does that mean?
In the little book, one moment, je t'aime, I love you.
Well, today the dictionary can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black
Museum. Here we are in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Not a very pleasant place, but it's interesting. Yes, here lies death. The people who conceived this place must have wished to raise a memorial to death. And here, collected under one roof, are the mementos of the murder from over 100 years. Here's a dart, a feathered dart, made for pleasure, for laughter and friendly tavern. This tiny metal tip was dipped in cyanide. A twist of a wrist, flick of an elbow. The dartboard missed. The spectator was scratched. It was an accident. An accident? No, it was murder. Ah, here we are, the dictionary. You want the English for a French word? Here it is, or the French for a word in English. It's here also. Nice idea. All in one book. Great convenience. Particularly for Jules Gamache, who had a bit of trouble expressing himself to Betty Brown on the beach in southern France. One warm and sunny afternoon.
Je t'aime.
Oh, you sound so passionate, Jules. What's that mean?
In the little book, one moment. Je t'aime. Oui, I love you.
Right, Jules. And me, a married woman?
It was. Love out of a dictionary in the summer in southern France. Of course, this was in 1923. That date's important simply because radio and broadcasting were just beginning. And Jules Gamache was something of an electrical engineer. In fact, he was the only man in a little French seaside town who was able to bring music out of the air.
Luc Gallen, how you say in anglais? Ah, de cat's whisker. So. Maintenant, ma chérie, écoutez.
Oh, Jules. But there really is music in these funny rubber earmuffs.
Huh?
Why, Jules, well, you are bright, aren't you?
I love you. I must have you now, today. Parbleu, always.
Oh, Jules.
A clever Frenchman who knew his way about with women. An Englishwoman vacationing in France. Why was she there?
Oh, Jules, if I were a better manager, if we'd be better with Ian, well, I'd never have had the breakdown. I'd never have come to France, and I'd never have met you and your... you and your wireless set.
Oh, so that was it. But all such items come to an end someday. And summer comes to an end. At least that's the correct calculation. That's the way Betty calculated. Without thinking of her, Jules.
Jules?
Oui, ma chérie?
I have to go home.
Oui, mais je viens. I come also.
Oh, Jules, that's impossible.
However, the usual sighs and protestations, of course. It was just a brief interlude. Betty was a trifle saddened to let it go. After all, when a woman is crowding 40... She went home anyway to Sussex, to the Binnacle Inn, to security of sorts, and to her husband, Al.
Business hasn't been too bad while you were away, Bessie. All the rooms were let this week, and the bar trade was fine.
I dare say you did all right by the bar.
The landlord's got to be social, girl. Otherwise his customers go somewhere else.
There's a difference, Alf, between social and drunk.
Here, now, none of that. I take a drop now and then, but I don't get drunk. Well, another customer. Business is picking up, and on the hotel side at that.
Oh.
How can I help you, sir?
I have, how you say, one moment, please. I will find the word. Ah, oui, I have come to stay.
What do you know? A froggy. Pleased to have you, monsieur. May I ask how you found us?
Well, that is... Monsieur Brown, the merveilleuse Madame Brown is the recommendation for your so select hotel. Is it not so that we have met in Provence, Madame?
The little Frenchman must have been mad. Mad with love. Or just a little touched in the head. In any case, he'd come just as he said, to stay. As he explained it to Al Brown.
I am, how you say, an inventor. I have much great ideas.
Yes, sure, Gamache, sure. But do you make any money?
To make money? Je ne comprends pas.
Money, shillings, francs.
Ah, oui, beaucoup d'argent. Oh, right now I wait from Canada. Much money.
And what do you invent to get all this beaucoup money?
The wireless. I am in the wireless, very much interested.
Well, Monsieur, if you can get music out of the air, maybe you can get some money out of the same place to pay what you owe us.
Huh?
You've been here a month now, and we haven't seen a shilling on your board bill.
Board bill? Comment?
There was another conversation shortly thereafter on the same subject, if not exactly on the same polite level.
Look, Bessie, he's your friend. We've got to have some money.
How can I ask him for money, even if he is our friend?
Yours, not mine. He doesn't take walks with me every afternoon.
Al Brown, are you suggesting?
I'm not suggesting, dearie. I'm telling you. Get some money out of him or out he goes. You're supposed to be the business head in this family. All right. Tend to business here.
Well, you never talked to me like this before.
It was the first time for everything, they say. For the first time, Al was in the driver's seat, and he knew it. So did Betty know it. On one of their afternoon walks, she said as much to Jules.
Jules?
Oui, ma chérie?
I suspect.
He will do nothing, jamais.
He's after me.
Huh?
To get money from you. What are you laughing at? I'm telling you, his out will be real nasty. And he throw us both out. And you without a penny. Well, it's not funny. He holds the whip hand. Don't you understand?
Oui, one moment.
Oh, Jules. Not that little book again.
Oui, ça fait mon, le petit livre. Ici, I have it. Like an Englishman, so... one may steal his wife, but not owe to him money.
Jules was self-confident, to say the least. He behaved as if he had a plan. He said to Al,
Never fear, mon ami. In a few days, beaucoup d'argent. You like? Oui?
To Betty, he said,
Je t'aime, ma chérie. Do not fear. All will be well.
A quiet, dull New Year's morning. The routine of the inn continued, minus the overtired, oversleeping maid. After a while, the master came grumbling down the stairs.
Bessie! Bessie, where are you?
Please. I think Mr. Gamache is dozing.
Well, let him doze in his room, then.
Pardon, monsieur? Into my chambre you wish for me to go? Oui?
Oh, no need for that. Is there, Al?
Oh, so long as he's awake, I don't care, one way or another. Where's my salt? You know I can't start a day without Miss Salt.
I know, dear. They're where you'd expect them to be, on the mantel shelf in their regular place.
Oh, yes, I forgot. If I may disturb you, monsieur...
Oh, but of course. The chair before the fire. Very nice, oui? Très charmant. When it is so very cold outside.
Oh, thanks. Bessie, that glass is here. Where's a tablespoon and some water?
Oh, I'll get them for you. Just a moment, dear.
Jules Gamache stood in the bay window and watched the little domestic scene. Occasionally, he riffled through his ever-present dictionary as if for a word to describe the events he was watching. Such inconsequential little events. Betty came trotting back from the kitchen with a tablespoon and a pitcher of water. She put them on the table alongside the salt and glass. Al measured his own dosage, poured it into the glass. Then he poured in the water. Almost mockingly, he raised his glass as if in a toast. The Frenchman standing nearby. Then down the contents of the glass.
Oh, Oh, those salts taste bitter this morning.
Yeah, they are never sweet, no?
Nothing sweet about them.
Then why complain, dear? You had more to drink than usual last night, so the salts taste more bitter than usual.
1 hour later.
Betty, get some help. Oh, it's the cramps. Oh, I can't stand it. I can't stand it. It's awful.
Oh, Joe, get a doctor. Call the cook. Do something.
I will try. My English, it is not good, no, but I will try.
Oh, my feet, they itch. Oh, they're driving me crazy. The pain, and the itching. Oh.
Shortly thereafter, Alfie Brown was quite dead. And so the tragedy reached its climax. And playing its little part in that tragedy was a certain dictionary, which, as I've told you, can be seen today in the Black Museum. Dr. Westcott, the local physician, was called at once, but far too late. Alf Brown was past help. The doctor listened gravely to the story as Betty told it to him, while Jules stood by, the very picture of solicitude.
Oh, he went so quick, Doctor, and in such agony, cramps and groans, and he said the strangest thing.
What was that, Mrs. Brown?
Well, he cried out that his feet were itching. It was almost the last thing he said.
Is that right, Mr. Mims?
Oui, monsieur le docteur, vous avez raison.
Huh? Well, if you say so, it's an interesting symptom. Peculiar one, particular poison. Though how this household will come by it, I haven't the slightest idea.
Poison? But, Doctor, it was his salts. Although he did complain that they tasted more bitter than usual.
Anything else, Mrs. Brown?
No, nothing else. Oh, I'm so upset, confused. But what poison? How?
Itching feet, bitter taste, great pain, or they all point to strychnine. But of course we won't be able to know for certain until there's been a post-mortem.
Oh, Doctor, why?
Well, I can't sign a certificate under these circumstances. I have to notify the coroner and the police.
Oh.
Now, I think our next precaution is for you to give me the bottle, the spoon, and the glass. Into my charge. Where are they?
Oh, well, I don't quite... Mr. Gamache, do you remember?
Je ne sais pas, madame. Je ne comprends pas.
Oh, come, Mrs. Brown. Now, pull yourself together. You want to catch the party who poisoned your husband, don't you?
Perhaps there was a better question than Dr. Westcott realized. It was pure rhetoric at that moment, as far as he was concerned. Of course, the widow wanted to catch the murderer. Still took a bit of concentrated prodding of Betty's memory until she said,
I know now, Doctor. I put them in the drawer of the kitchen table when I left poor Alfie for a moment to fetch some tea and soda. I thought it might help.
They found the bottle and the glass and the spoon in the kitchen table drawer. The doctor looked at them closely.
Someone's washed these thoroughly. There are still traces of water in the bottle and the glass. Mrs. Brown, I'm going to the police at once.
And Dr. Westcott went to the local police. The local police went to Scotland Yard. Betty Brown went to Jules Gamache.
You did it, Jules. I don't know how, but you did it.
Moi? Ma chérie, ma foi, impossible.
You did. You killed Alfie, and you stayed right there and watched him die.
Betty, you are most... how is it? Oui, you are most hysterical. You know I do not kill your Alfie. You must know this.
I know. I feel it in my bones. You killed him. Go away, Jules. Go away. I never want to see you again as long as I live.
Sadly, as if overwhelmed by the unpredictability of women, Jules Gamache packed his things and left the Binnacle Inn. But he didn't go far. Just to the next village and the next inn. There he waited and watched. waited to hear from his beloved, now widowed, his Betty. Waited for developments in the case which the coroner's jury had labeled death at the hands of person or persons unknown. The developments were not long in coming.
My name is West, Mrs. Brown, Inspector West, Scotland Yard. My credentials.
Yes, sir.
I have a few questions, particularly concerning the disposal of the poison.
I'll try to answer them, Inspector.
Do you know who washed out the bottle and glass?
No, I'm afraid I don't. I left them in the kitchen. We were all so upset by poor Alfie's suffering. We were rather hysterical, I'm afraid.
I understand. No idea on that. I see. Tell me, Mrs. Brown, have you ever used any kind of weed killer in the garden of this inn?
No, sir. Not that I know of.
Poison for rodents, rats, mice, and so on?
No, sir. We've never been troubled by such.
Have you any idea who might have wanted to kill your husband, Mrs. Brown?
No, I haven't.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Brown.
The inspector left the front of the house, so to speak, and visited below stairs. He had a nice talk with the cook over a cup of tea.
Mrs. Davis, did you wash out the salts bottle?
No, why should I? I've got enough work. And that was New Year's Day. The maid didn't come in. I had to clean up, too. Pity, not much of a New Year in this house.
Did you notice the bottle at all?
Well, I remember saying to Mrs. Brown that there wasn't much more than a tablespoon left in it. And perhaps she better order another bottle in case Mr. Brown was getting mad if he had none.
Now, this is important, Mrs. Davis. Can you place anyone at all in this kitchen between the time Mrs. Brown brought the bottle in here and the time Dr. Westcott took it away?
No one but the Frenchman, sir.
Mr. Gamesh.
I seem to remember, sir. I wouldn't want to get him in no trouble unless he deserved it. But he did come in here and jabber at me. And then he used his little book.
Little book?
He's got a dictionary. Looks up the French and finds the English. Right comical he is sometimes.
I see. Then he looked in his dictionary.
And he said bottle. He said something else. I didn't pay much attention. I just pointed at the kitchen drawer.
Did he take the bottle out of the drawer?
I wouldn't know, sir. For all I know, he just wanted to be sure it was in a safe place. I heard him open and close the drawer, that was all. Then he went out.
Did he have a chance to put it back?
Lots of chances. I was that busy running in and out.
That's too bad. Oh, excellent tea, Mr. Davis.
The inspector was never a man to accept loose ends. He ran all his leads to earth. This is the approach which brought him finally to where Jules Gamache was staying.
Do you accuse me, Inspector? Merely asking routine questions, Mr. Gamesh. Did you have any reason to dislike or resent Mr. Brown?
None. No, but of course not.
Have you ever had any strychnine in your possession?
No, but pourquoi? Why should I?
I can't say, sir. I can only try to fill in the blank spaces. Someone, you see, gave Mr. Brown the opportunity to poison himself. That kind of gift is murder, Mr. Gamesh.
Naturellement.
I'm afraid I must ask you to remain in England, sir, until the case is closed.
But for me, this will be a pleasure. I assure you, Inspector, I wish to see vengeance on this murderer. I loved Mr. Brown, almost as a brother.
So there it was, a smooth, blank wall for Scotland Yard to face and search for some crack somewhere. The interest in the case simmered down. Nothing was happening. Then the newspapers picked up a lead, something so fantastic the men assigned to watch the Binnacle Inn and its neighborhood hardly believed their own ears. It seems that Jules Gamache began to write letters. And to the police.
There is one suspect who had not been questioned. A man long subject to Alfred Brown's whims and tempers. The pot washer at the inn, known to me only as Georges. I point the finger of suspicion. Observe, gentlemen of Scotland Yard, the comings and goings of Monsieur Arthur Brookfield, solicitor to Madame Brown. This man is in and out of her residence at all hours. Certainly not all of this can be on business.
Was jealousy entering the picture now? The letters aroused a good deal of attention once they leaked to the newspapers, as such things have a way of doing. Jules Gamache was quite pleased when the reporters swarmed about him and the photographers took his picture. Many times, in many poses. This was fame, at last, for an impoverished inventor living on his wits.
Come in, sir. You asked to see me on the Brown case.
Yes, sir. My name is Scott, sir. I'm the owner of a chemist's shop in Woking.
Not too far from the Binnacle Inn, is it?
Just far enough to miss some of the news, but this morning I saw this newspaper.
Ah, yes, our French friend. Do you know him?
He was a customer of mine a few weeks back, just before Christmas.
Go on, Mr. Scott.
He asked for strychnine.
Oh, what excuse did he give?
Oh, something about experiments in the wireless. He kept consulting a small English-French dictionary to express himself.
The wireless, yes, that's the new excuse. Although why they should think the wireless operations entail the use of poisons is beyond me. Did you sell him any?
I did. I made him sign the poison book. The name he used was Hatch.
Mr. Scott, do you think you can identify this man among a dozen others? Well, Mr. Scott?
That's he, sir. The short fellow with the bright black eyes.
Thank you, mister.
Monsieur le chemiste. Bonjour, c'est un plaisir. How you say, one moment, please. Oui, ici. It is a pleasure that we meet again.
Jules Gamache, I have a warrant for your arrest on a charge of willful murder. I must warn you that anything you may say...
Well, that's the story. And today, the dictionary which played its part in that story can be found in its place in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment.
Truly a strange, impassioned little man, that Jules Gamache. He's half crazy, half sane. You wonder about him. And you know, to add to the dilemma of his personality, here's one last point. While Jules was awaiting execution, he wrote another letter to Inspector West, stating that shortly after the death of Al Brown, he, Jules, saw a woman. Whether the woman was the cook or his beloved Betty, he didn't know, secrete something behind some loose bricks in the garden wall at the Binnacle Inn. Of course, the police investigated. They found 2 small jugs, one with crystalline strychnine in it, and the other with a solution of the same poison. Now, the question is, did Jules Gamache put those jugs there himself, or did one of the women? And if the latter, why did Gamache wait until just before his death to reveal this? Was it some odd form of gallantry? Well, I guess no one will ever know. And now until next time, till we meet in the same place and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain as always, obediently yours.
This is WDCB-FM, Glen Ellen.
A receipt for payment for 10 gallons of gasoline. Familiar object you've had it many times yourself if you drive a car, but this particular receipt.
Your receipt, Inspector. Tanks full, oil and water fine. Thank you.
Quite a receipt you hand out.
My partner's idea. He likes it.
Look at this, Sergeant. Stamped with a gallows, complete with corpse, and marked settled. Rather appropriate, eh?
Well, today, as I told you, this receipt lies in its proper place, an honored place, in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Here we are, the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's museum, a museum of murder. Here lies death, arranged in glass cases, lined along the shelves on the tables, larger objects standing on the floor. Over there's an old-fashioned trunk. There's nothing in this trunk but some old clothes. The clothes led to a furnace. The things in the furnace led a man to the gallows. There's a teacup and its saucer. Charming, graceful, real bone china. But the contents were deadly. Ah, here we are. Here's the receipt I told you about. Settled, it says. Paid in full. 10 gallons of gas. From the evidence, Police Constable Matthews had anything but murder on his mind that very early morning, an hour before dawn, as he patrolled a quiet country road near his home in Essex.
Summer must be almost over. Cold this time of morning. Not even false dawn yet. Nights are getting longer. Pleasant enough this tour during summer. Lonely a bit, I suppose. Gives a man time for thinking. What do I think about? Ellen and the breakfast she'll have for me. Egg, bit of bacon, cup of tea, then some sleep. Ridiculous. Grown man sleeping in broad daylight when you come to think of it. Well, company coming. Seems to be traveling at quite a rate. Too fast even this time of night. Stop this car! Pull over there!
I know that car. Never saw him drive like that before. Well, I must say, sir, you're going rather fast. Oh, what's the idea, Constable? I'm in a hurry. Yes. Oh, it seems. Let me see your license. I know how to drive. Where'd you come from? Longridge Garage. It's a long way from here. Called out on an emergency. I said I'm in a hurry to get back now. And this car is yours? Oh, it's mine. Oh, another of you. In the back seat. Can't you keep that flashlight out of my eyes? What's the number of this car? See for yourself. It's on the plates. I know the number. Do you? What is this, an investigation? If you want it that way. What are you doing? He's dead, all right. I'm making sure. No dead man keeps my face in his eyes. Now he's got no eyes. Hurry! We gotta get out of here.
In the ditch where he'd fallen, bloody face turned skyward, policeman Constable Matthews didn't see the dawn. Later that morning, another man trudged along that Essex road, mail sack on shoulder, busy with his own thoughts, until...
Good. It's Matthews. Or what's left of him. Oh, what a rotten way to die. Here, I'll have to get help.
Help was very soon in coming. First the local police, then the wires to London hummed with the word.
Can you leave the body where it is? I expect so, Inspector. He won't worry about it, poor fellow.
Very well. I'll be down from the yard as soon as I can get a car.
Inspector Manson and Sergeant Wright left Scotland Yard, careening out of the gates on two wheels, and roared out of London and into Essex. They set a record reaching the scene of the crime. The two policemen, quiet in their plain clothes, asked the local constable to move the crowd of curious well back from the body. And the team from the yard went to work.
A rotten killing, Inspector.
Bad as I've seen. 4 bullets where one would have been enough.
It looks like a cop hater, Inspector.
Turn cop killer. Lift the head a moment.
Right, sir.
Oh, here they are. 2 slugs. 45. Went right through it.
Well, we never had a chance. The angle of the cheek wound, sir. From below and to the side.
Back seat of the car he stopped.
Tire marks, Inspector?
Right here. In the shoulder of the road. And deep enough for casts. Still holding his pencil. It's what we're all afraid of on traffic duty. What's your number and the shots. That's all.
I still don't get the eyes, Inspector.
Old story. Legend. When a criminal shoots a policeman, the criminal's image is supposed to be imprinted on the poor fellow's retinas. Just superstition. Let's go, Sergeant.
Just superstition, but perhaps a mark, a clue, pointing to the habitual criminal. The police routine began. The tire marks were taken up in plaster casts. The bullets were turned over to ballistics. The search, the almost blind search, began. In the course of their duty, Inspector Manson and Sergeant Wright dropped in on the superintendent of the local police.
Gee, the car's over my rounds. I can't afford to wait until the insurance company is satisfied, nor can my patients. I know you're busy, what with the murder and all that, but surely you can spare some time.
What? Oh, Inspector Manson, come in.
Sorry to intrude, sir, but the sergeant and I are about ready to go back to London.
I see. This is Dr. Lewis, our resident practitioner. Doctor, Inspector Manson, and Sergeant Wright, Scotland Yard.
How do you do?
How do you do, sir?
Scotland Yard. About the murder of that poor policeman.
That's right, Doctor.
And the doctor's car's missing. I've been explaining to him how he'd been tied up on the killing.
Which, of course, I understand. But I need my car, gentlemen. I almost missed a berth last night. Came out of my house expecting to hop into my car. No car.
About what time was that, sir?
About 3 a.m. First time I think like that's ever happened round here.
I see. Rather interesting coincidence.
Well, how's that, Inspector?
One of the familiar patterns in our work is to have a policeman attacked when he stops a stolen car.
Like a Lord Harry.
May I, Superintendent?
Of course.
Will you describe the car, Doctor?
Within minutes, Sergeant Wright was on the telephone.
All station alarm. Dark blue Morris sedan, number TW8529. Registered in the name of Dr. Robert...
Within 6 hours, it had been abandoned in a London suburb. Dr. Lewis was taken for the automobile ride of his life. Sirens screaming, tires squealing. No time to waste.
This your car, Doctor?
It certainly is.
Give it a going over, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
Let's have a look inside, Doctor. Splashes on the outside of the door. Could be blood.
Yes, it might very well be.
Oh. You own a pistol, Doctor?
Good heavens, no. Why?
Cartridge case on the floor. Here. See it? 45 caliber. Notice anything missing?
Yes, my instrument bag. I left it on the back seat, as I usually do. Some quite valuable surgical equipment and all that. Hard to come by these days.
I understand. Yes, Sergeant?
Earth and dried grass, sir. Curbside wheels, front and back. Mudguard damaged on that side as well. And the tyres, sir, I'd not want to state positively until we check the casts, but they look the same as the marks on the road.
Ah, excellent, Sergeant.
Here's something may help. Inspector, Sergeant.
Yes, Doctor?
The speedometer. I keep a trip record every 24 hours. Just a habit. When I left the car last night, the speedometer read 40.9 miles. It's 84.3 now.
And the car has come 43.4 miles. That may be quite a help to us, Doctor. Perhaps more than you realize.
The first point which came to mind as the inspector and the sergeant drove back to Scotland Yard.
43 miles. Took a lot of back roads. Whoever it was must be known. No fingerprints in the car either.
Then next, as the car turned into the yard...
He must know Essex rather well. An angle worth working on.
A little while later, with a pile of dossiers on his desk, the inspector said...
What do you think of this one, Sergeant?
Thomas Green, also known as Greenie Thomas and Ted Grenville. Convicted 1920, possession of firearms. Convicted fraud and forgery. Convicted car theft. So, known as operator garage in Eastwood, Essex. Alters stolen car.
Knows Essex, doesn't he?
He's a possibility, sir. Habitual. Fits the rest of the characteristics.
Shall we have Mr. Green in, Sergeant?
Yes, sir. Operator, hue and cry message to all stations. Photo for posting will follow shortly. Wanted for questioning, Tom Green, also known as Green.
So far, so good. Maybe they were on the right track. Maybe not. The alarm went out. Out to every station house and crossroads in England. Every policeman from the south coast to the border of Scotland was alerted for Mr. Thomas Green, also known as Greenie Thomas, and so forth. Result? Nothing. No, not a sign. Not a trace.
Here's something, Sergeant. Police in Lancashire picked up a fellow answering Green's description. He confessed to a burglary to prove he wasn't in Essex the night Matthews was shot.
I imagine they know we don't like cop killers.
No, they don't like cop killers. But they still had no trace of the suspect. None at all. For 7 long weeks.
Watch where you're going!
Roadhog, you in the truck. Serves you right.
Yeah? Wanna make something of it?
Hey, what's going on here? I'll have to report this, you know.
This man forced me into the wall.
Is that correct, sir? You're Green. There's an order out for you.
Keep back, driver, or you'll get it too.
What a dirty rotten. Get the number. Get the number of that car. I can't see. I got it, lad. GR5607.
Well, today, as I told you, this receipt lies in its proper place. An honored place. In the Black Museum. Another policeman shot, luckily not fatally. Another car number obtained, immediate check, yes, a stolen car, a Vauxhall this time. Several times thereafter, in the course of 10 days, that number appeared on the Scotland Yard teletype.
Armed robbery, cinema cashier. Lone thief seen leaving area in car number GR5607.
That's Green, all right. He's broken cover with a vengeance. There it is again, Sergeant. Same number. This time he held up a railway station.
He's made another stop, sir. This time a bank messenger. Same car, same number, GR5607.
Inspector Manson here.
Sergeant Wright, sir. Report from Sheffield. They've got the Vauxhall Green was using. He sold it to a used car dealer. Man suspected of being a fence.
Meet me at the gate, Sergeant. We are going to Sheffield.
Constable Matthews is long gone, I know. Several weeks, in fact. But the wheels of vengeance for his unnecessary death ground on in Sheffield. Inspector Manson talked briefly and to the point.
Now get this straight. The man who sold you this car is wanted on suspicion of murder. Hold out on us and you'll be an accessory after the fact. We'll see to that.
How was I to know, Inspector? He had owner's papers. They looked all right. I paid him in good faith, I did.
Save it. You received stolen goods. Now then, what do you know about this man?
Nothing, sir, nothing.
Tell him, Sergeant.
You know plenty. We happen to have checked. You were associated with him in a garage business in Essex. Now talk.
I'm honest. I didn't know nothing. He told me he got the Vauxhall through a garage he's interested in Battersea. You can't pit anything.
Back to London. The chase seemed getting warmer. Outside the garage in Battersea, Inspector Manson and Sergeant Wright sat in their parked car and waited.
Car coming this way, sir. The light's in the rear view mirror.
I see it, Sergeant. Patience, Sergeant. He's only turning in.
I caught his face in the light, sir. It's Green, all right. Chauffeur's outfit.
Let's go. Take care.
He's left the car on the ramp, sir.
Yes, probably gone to change his clothes. Check the car, Sergeant. Side pocket of the door.
Right, sir. A Webley 45, Inspector.
Oh, 45. Let's get him. Listen a moment. He's in there. Take care of the door, Sergeant.
Yes, sir.
What's the meaning of this? What do you want?
You, Green.
Let go, copper. If I'd not done it...
Oh, thanks, sir. He almost had me.
Put the cuffs on him. We'll take the Webley and get him back to the yard. Hello? What's this on the workbench?
Medical case, sir. Initials on it, RL. For Robert Lewis, Inspector?
I wouldn't be surprised. Let's go, Sergeant, and you needn't be too gentle with him.
At long last, Tom Green, alias Greenie Thomas, was in custody. And a none too pleasant customer, this fellow.
Hey, when do I get something to eat, copper?
We'll get to that. You're in for questioning on a possible murder charge. I must warn you, anything you may say. Where were you on the night of October 26th last?
I was in London with my girl. What's more, she'll swear to it.
Where did you get the revolver we found in the pocket of the car?
I bought it from a sailor. Never got his name or number.
We found another Webley in the doctor's case, Green. Where did you get that?
I ain't talking.
The first one's been certified as the gun that killed Constable Matthews. That's the gun you said you bought from the sailor in September.
What? Oh, then I got them mixed up.
Oh.
Yeah, I must have bought the gun in the case from the sailor, and the one you say killed the copper I picked up in November. So what? You got plenty of cops, haven't you, Inspector?
How are we coming on the check of Green's friends, Sergeant?
They're all accounted for and all with alibis, except this fella Davis. Yes, it's funny about him.
Yeah? What?
Well, he spent most of his life in stir. But the last time he got out, he upped and married. In Sheffield.
In Sheffield? And Green took that stolen Vauxhall to Sheffield? Let's bring Mr. Davis in, Sergeant. I'm rather interested in him.
Once again, the two police officers drove their car in the direction of Sheffield. Along the road, they stopped at a service station. 10 gallons of gasoline, and a look at the oil and water. They pay the attendant and ask for a receipt. Vouchers will have to be signed in the usual police routine.
Your receipt, Inspector. Tanks full, oil and water fine.
Thank you. Quite a receipt you hand out.
My partner's idea. He likes it.
Look at this, Sergeant. Stamped with a gallows, complete with corpse. And marked Fettle. Rather appropriate, eh?
It might have been more appropriate if they'd had more success in Sheffield.
Too late, Inspector.
Our bird flown?
Yes, sir. Left town the day before yesterday. The day we picked up Green.
Oh, I see. Well, we'll find him. I'm beginning to feel more like a tracer of missing persons than an officer on a murder case.
The familiar police machinery went back into action. The underworld was watched. The hue and cry message went to all stations. Within a few days this time, word came through.
Davis has been seen with his wife in Liverpool, sir.
All right, Sergeant. We'll travel.
In Liverpool, they found the hideout well watched. Davis wasn't there. His wife was at home. The place was a down-at-the-heels lodging house, disreputable, filthy. Inspector Manson made a decision.
We'll wait for him outside, Sergeant. I found that most men will put up a much harder struggle when their women are present.
So they waited. Waited in the dark, shabby street. Far off, they could hear the foghorns of the ships in Liverpool's busy roadstead.
Eerie noise they make, isn't it?
I don't mind it. Seems, well, friendly.
It depends, sir. Hey, someone just passed the 2nd Street lamp down that way, sir.
Don't show yourself. Wait until he passes under the next one. We can be sure then. That's our man. When he's closer, Sergeant.
Right, sir. All right, Davis, please come quietly.
Would you stay away from me?
I said come quietly, Davis.
Copper White, look me and don't take me. My wrist, you broke my wrist.
Never point a gun at a police officer, Davis. He'll come quietly now, Inspector.
They were quite a pair. Defiant, snarling Tom Green. Moaning, whining Davis. The inspector knew he had Green on the evidence, but the 2 bullets that had been fired from the back seat of the car were unexplained, except by the presence of a second man. Was Davis the man? How to prove it?
You haven't satisfied us, Davis. You've told us Green asked you to manage his garage.
That's right. I don't know nothing about October the 26th.
We think you do. Were you with Green that night?
I was with my wife.
And Green says he was with his girl. Did you shut up the garage?
No. Yes, I did. No business that night, anyway.
Yes, Sergeant?
A note for you, sir.
Thank you. I see. Thank you. All right, Davis, Green's talked.
There's nothing to talk about.
He says you pulled the trigger. He says he was already in gear, and Ridgway was going to let you go when you fired from the back seat.
The cop had his foot on the running board. I never did a thing.
Nice timing, Sergeant. I think you'd better talk, Davis. You're foraged in any case. Speak up, man.
All right. Yeah. Sure, I was with Green that night. We picked a car to swipe down there in that Essex village. A doctor's car. We had to work fast. A dog started barking. We pushed the thing from in front of the house and got in. Greenie was driving. We'd have been fine, but that dumb cop had to stop us. He knew the car. Thought it was the doctor. But I didn't kill nobody. It was Greenie. All the way it was Greenie. I never killed nobody. Nobody. I tell you, I didn't kill nobody. Nobody. Nobody.
All finished, Davis? Would you like to see the note Sergeant Wright handed me?
No, I don't want to look.
A receipt, Davis, for 10 gallons of petrol, stamped with a gallows and marked settled.
And today, as I told you, that receipt can be found in a place of special honor in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment.
There was no doubt, of course. From the angle of the wounds in Constable Matthews' face, it was clear that at least 2 bullets had been fired from the back seat of the stolen car. Davis's counsel tried to pin the blame on Green. Green's counsel tried to place it all on Davis. The jury found both men guilty, and both were sentenced to hang. Green tried to cheat the gallows, hiding a razor blade in his cell and cutting his wrists one night. But the guards discovered this in time, and the trap fell twice one morning. So the case of Constable Matthews was marked settled. And now, until next time, till we meet again in the same place, and I tell you another story of the Black Museum, I remain, as always, obediently yours. This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum, a repository of death, a museum of murder. Yes, here in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide, where everyday objects, a portable typewriter, a jack for an automobile, an ice pick, all are touched by murder. Here's a pair of spectacles. It's a familiar object, Neat, not too large, tortoiseshell frames with gold tops. You've seen them 100 times on girls who obviously have decided that they must wear glasses. They'll make the glasses as decorative as possible, but this pair...
Women's glasses. Right on top in the suitcase.
And pretty thoroughly smashed. Poor Daisy.
Something, whatever it was, must have hit her awfully hard to smash her spectacles like this.
Today, those spectacles can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum. In just a moment, you will hear The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. Now, The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
Now, here we are in the Black Museum. Scotland Yard's Museum of Murder. Yes, here lies death. Who died by these objects? The dead, named here on the white labels of the black lettering, or the killers, named in equal place, in equal size, wherever they are known. A mandolin string. Here we are. It's made for music, a mandolin string. Stretch it across the top of a stairway, see it blend and disappear into the dark carpet background. Stretch it ankle high and listen in the dark for the sound of falling. Sound of murder. Here's a French novel, romance, with a blackened perforation in the center of the pages where the bullet passed, which ended romance. Now, here we are, the spectacles. Rather pathetic spectacles. The lenses are cracked, the frame twisted and bent, the gilt tarnished. Many other things were tarnished, including a man's reputation, by the chain of events which began that morning when Mrs. Oliver came to see Inspector Laswell at the yard.
I understand, Mrs. Oliver. Perhaps your daughter thought she'd let you know, but didn't after all.
I wish I could believe that, Inspector. I can't. Daisy was so determined when she left that night.
And since she went to the train, you've heard nothing?
I wired Ron. I never liked him. Something, I don't know. I thought my Daisy do better for herself than a chicken farmer. Anyway, I wired, asked him if Daisy was there. I received this in reply, Inspector.
Thought Daisy coming Saturday, not Friday. Went to meet her, not there. Letter follows. Ron Smith. This was last Saturday?
Yes. I wired on Monday. This answer came back the same day. The letter came in yesterday, Wednesday.
Oh, thank you. Dear Mrs. Oliver, you do not know how shocked I am. Daisy missing since Friday afternoon. This is really terrible. She wrote asking me to meet her Saturday. I went...
The heartsick words of a worried man, the tone and feeling of the letter, plus the fear and the tears of the mother, sent Inspector Caswell to Luxumbourg in Sussex, the nearest town to Wren Smith's chicken farm, the railway terminal for the area. He turned first to that prime source of all rural information, the local pub.
Evening, landlord. Pint of beer, please.
Yes, sir, of course.
Haven't I seen you someplace before, my good man?
What? Oh, Jack Sheen. You have seen me someplace before. Drink up, man. It's good to see a familiar face.
A familiar face drawn by a familiar scent.
You're not down here on business.
I am. And so are you.
No, I wanted to keep this quiet. For a while, anyway.
With that crowd? Over at the dartboard? Your old-time friends, Caswell. Morton of the Times, Alsop of the Guardian, Durr of the News, and yours truly.
You fellas have the sense of smell of a ferret.
We have to. It's our living. Do you think the girl is dead, Caswell?
There it was, words of one syllable, literally one syllable. Do you think the girl is dead? Inspector Caswell shrugged and turned to his drink. Without apparent effort, he drifted into conversation with the landlord while Jack Sheen stood by, quietly, unobtrusively.
Have there been any talk hereabouts recently about a girl who's missing?
Some?
Well, girls get silly ideas sometimes, especially the young ones.
Only silly thing about this girl was the man she went for.
Huh?
They get that way sometimes, even the best of them.
Oh, I know what you mean. Anything wrong with the man in it?
Ne'er-do-well, owes for feed, everything in sight. Lives in a hut on his farm, not even a proper house.
Oh, that's it?
This Oliver girl now, bright, sweet as they come. Real pert in them fancy glasses she always wore. Then, off the deep end over this Smith fella. Never know why they do it.
Whereabouts is this chicken farm?
Right fork east. Second right after the fork. You thinking of going up there?
Oh, I might drop over. Told the girl's mother I'd look around. Maybe talk to Smith. From his letters, he's pretty well upset himself.
Him? Upset over that girl? Not much. What's happened to your friend?
My friend? Why, he was just... 5 will get you 10, landlord. My friend is halfway there by now.
Inspector Caswell was absolutely right. Jack Sheen was well up the right fork and turning into the lane that led to Ron Smith's chicken farm.
Who's there? I said, who's there?
I'm Jack Sheen of the London Daily Post. I'd like to talk to you.
What makes you think I want to talk to you?
Oh, most people talk to me. If they don't, I usually write what I think they might have said. Very simple.
Smart, aren't you?
I know my business, I hope. Fellows down in the village suggest you don't.
Yeah, they like to talk.
Don't you?
Not about things that ain't my business.
Daisy Oliver is your business.
She was.
Meaning, exactly?
Daisy said she was coming down last Friday. I left my gate unlocked, like you found it tonight. She was always touchy about that.
She never came, though.
That's right. Now, all this talk. I'm more worried about her than I ought to be. Nancy's going to make a fuss about that pretty soon.
Nancy? Well?
A girl, Nancy Noble, lives up the road a piece. Her and me have been walking out lately. Daisy knew. I figured she'd be coming down like she wrote on account of...
Apparently, Mr. Ron Smith, chicken farmer, was as garrulous in his way as his hands were in theirs. He clucked on at great rate. Finally, Jack Sheen got away, scribbled a bit in his notebook, and then off to sleep. The next morning, quite early.
Hello there.
What? Oh, you startled me.
You don't look as if you scare easy.
I don't. Who are you walking into a barn like this behind a busy girl's back?
A fellow who thinks you'd make a better wife for Ron Smith than some frail little girl from the city.
You know your way around, don't you?
There was banter and introductions. Nancy was quite flattered, of course, over the visit of a reporter. She talked.
Sure, I met Daisy.
Like her?
All right. If you go for milksops.
I see. I heard Ron was going to marry her right after Christmas.
Not if he could break the engagement, he wasn't. He's all set to marry me.
Oh, so that's the way the wind blows, huh?
It sure does. Or did. Now, with all the fuss over Daisy disappearing, Well, Ron's too upset even to think, I guess.
Upset, is he?
He told me, night before last. He's afraid she's killed herself.
So Daisy may be dead. And Ron is afraid she may have committed suicide. Well, Jack Sheen has turned up a fact or two, hasn't he? Of course, Inspector Caswell hasn't been inactive.
Mr. Jeffrey, I'm told by our host, the landlord, that you think you saw the Oliver girl last Friday night.
I think so. I was coming up the road, out past the fork. My place is out past Smith's. There was a girl ahead of me. She turned to look back. I thought I saw her wearing spectacles.
Is that all?
Well, she must have turned in at Smith's. She didn't pass my place. Reed here saw her real close.
Did you, Mr. Reed?
Yes, sir. I met Jeffrey on the road. I was coming down to the road of the village after fixing the septic tank out to Jeffrey's place. Girl passed real close. The Oliver girl, all right, wearing her specs and carrying a suitcase.
Ah, that's right. She had a suitcase like she walked out from the train. Why, the Smith fella didn't go in and meet her.
Then there was the routine visit to the cottage where Daisy usually stayed when she was in Luxumbourg.
Did you hear from Miss Oliver, ma'am, that she was coming down here this past Friday?
She didn't, and she always stayed with me. If she'd planned to come down, well, you never know, what with young girls being so free nowadays. And she had spent all her savings on these trips. She told me that last time she was here.
Well, when was that?
Oh, about 2 months ago. She seemed so nervous, poor thing. Even then, you know, jumpy, always a little scared, like a rabbit, sort of. Oh, I don't know. I wish I didn't keep thinking.
And finally, there was Edith Staple. Miss Staple had a friend in the outlying area, and Miss Staple had been crossing a field near the chicken farm, a kind of shortcut.
Yes, Inspector. I'm positive I saw her. I saw 2 men on the road, too. One passed her. The men met, talked a little, and went on. By the time I passed the lane to Smith's place, she was in as far as the first shed.
You saw quite a bit, didn't you?
The road is on a little rise just there. I was coming up to it, and everyone was, well, sort of outlined against the sky.
Well, thank you, Miss Staple. Thank you very much.
There must have been a girl. 9 chances out of 10 it was Daisy Oliver. But how to prove it? Where had she disappeared to? Inspector Caswell and Jack Sheen compared notes. They stayed around Luxumbourg. That fact alone started the talk, which had impetus enough in any case.
People don't just disappear, I tell you. She must be somewhere.
She turned into Smith's place. Want to bet she never came out?
Nice girls don't take chances going alone to men's homes, even when they're more decent than the hut he lives in.
I'll get him, you'll see. He did the girl in. Want to bet?
The talk reached Smith, of course. On the heels of the talk came Jack Sheen.
Nice lot of chickens you've got here, Smith.
You didn't come out here to talk about chickens.
No? What then?
You're trying to get more on Daisy and me.
The town has plenty on you, they think.
Yeah, long tongues. They wag too much.
You can stop them, you know, quite easily.
How, I'd like to know.
Oh, just ask Inspector Caswell to bring his crew out here to dig up your farm. They'll find nothing. That'll stop the talk.
I'll do it. They can dig any place they want. Except I wouldn't want them to disturb my chickens.
The remarks were duly reported to the inspector. His comment was,
"We'll be glad not to disturb his chickens."
I should think that's exactly what you would do.
Oh, I don't know a thing about chickens, except roasted.
Look, he was rather pointed about it, you know. Don't disturb my chickens. You know, if I were you, Caswell, I'd do some digging around that chicken run. Might save you a lot of extra trouble. You catch on, Inspector?
The inspector caught on to the extent of asking Ron Smith to drop in at the police station while Jeffrey and Reed and a few of the others with Jack Sheen began their digging.
Not much good this ground.
Good enough for chickens.
Got something?
No, just a rotten stick. Nothing suspicious like.
There's something here.
Yes, I'd say you had something there. Lift out your shovel, Jeffrey.
Okay.
Now, look, I'm going to open it.
I want you to witness that I neither take out nor put in any object. Ready?
Yeah, all
right.
right.
Okay, now just watch this.
It's the girl's suitcase, all right. I'd know those specs any place.
Well, today those spectacles can be found in the Black Museum.
In just a moment, we will continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles. And now we continue with The Black Museum, starring Orson Welles.
It was her suitcase. Yes, there it was, the earth of the chicken run clinging to its frayed handle, its shabby sides. Jack Sheen stopped the digging, sent Reed pell-mell for the inspector.
Women's glasses. Right on top in the suitcase.
And pretty thoroughly smashed. Poor Daisy.
Something, whatever it was, must have hit her awfully hard to smash her spectacles like this.
Shall we go on, Inspector?
Digging? Of course. But carefully. We don't want the edges of the spades to disfigure anything.
The first thing they found was part of the torso. And the limbs wrapped in sacking. Finally, the head in a tin box, buried shallowly in the chicken run.
I've had enough. Are we through?
Sorry I didn't have a regular police crew for this. You can go along. And thanks. You too, Mr. Reed.
Where's Smith?
At your local police station, where Mr. Sheen and I will be interviewing him in a very short while.
They interviewed him. It was quite simple at first. They gave him the facts.
We've found her, Smith, thanks to Mr. Sheen here and the strong arms of some of your neighbors. Well, what have you to say? First, I must warn you that anything you may say may be taken down in writing and used as evidence. Now, go ahead.
I didn't kill her. I didn't.
That's only a beginning.
She came down on Friday to have it out with me. She was so nervous. She was all twitchy. She said she wouldn't leave my place until we'd set a date for the wedding. But she knew about Nancy. She knew that. We had a row, a real hard row. Well, I guess I gave in. I said the 27th of December, right after Christmas. Then I promised I'd tell Nancy that night. Daisy wasn't satisfied until I'd gone right out looking for Nancy. I couldn't find her. I came back and Daisy was hanging from the beam in my hut. She must have jumped from the table. It was awful.
What did you do? Why didn't you go for help, a doctor?
Well, I cut her down first. I thought there might be some life left.
Did you try artificial respiration?
And as soon as I got her on the bed, I saw it was no use.
But you still didn't call anybody.
I was afraid. I panicked. I thought they wouldn't believe me. They'd all think I killed her and try to make it look like suicide.
So you buried her?
Yes, in the morning.
But you cut her up first. You deliberately dismembered the body in an attempt...
Have you ever tried to dispose of a body? True, a body is 76% water, but have you ever tried to get rid of one? It's almost impossible to burn without special apparatus. Burying it leaves it intact. What do? Find a lime pit? Even that isn't foolproof. What do you do?
After you knew she was dead, you still wrote letters to her home.
I couldn't stop doing that. If people were to believe that I hadn't killed her myself.
May I, Inspector?
Of course, Jack.
What about these?
Her glasses. You found them, too.
How did they get this way?
Well, they must have fallen off when I cut her down. I suppose I stepped on them or something. Her head hit the table as I was carrying her to the bed. I couldn't believe Daisy was gone. I couldn't...
Smith couldn't believe she was dead. Jack Sheen and Inspector Caswell couldn't believe other items.
It doesn't fit, Caswell. It doesn't.
What's bothering you about it?
Look, a girl who's just been told her wedding date doesn't hang herself in the next half hour.
Yeah, I saw that. I sent his shoes down to London to the laboratory. If he did step on those glasses, there'll be bits of glass on the soles or heels.
I'm no doctor, Caswell, but did you notice any rope marks on the neck?
I didn't. I have sent for one of the medical examiners. We'll know all about that very soon.
They held Smith on an open charge. The least would be an illegal burial and failure to notify the proper authorities. Meanwhile, Sir Harold Hubert, one of the yard's best medical men, came to Luxumbourg. He worked, and he made his report.
The girl did not die of strangulation, gentlemen.
What was that? She didn't?
There's a slight discoloration of the throat, but that was probably caused after death.
Oh, what did she die from, then?
Shock. Caused by the multiple bruises all over her body. That girl was beaten to death.
Now the questions descended on Sir Harold's head in a deluge.
No sign of strangulation at all?
She may have been partially hung. There's congestion of the blood vessels of the throat.
But she didn't die up there.
If she was hung at all, she was alive when she was cut down.
What else could have caused the congestion in the throat?
Manual strangulation. Or she could have been knocked down, as is a logical assumption in this situation.
Did you knock her down and step on her throat, Smith?
Of course not. How could I have when she was hanging as I entered the building?
You're certain she was hanging and dead?
I know she was hanging. I'm as sure as I can be that she was dead.
All right. Take him back to the cell.
There it was. The expert said no hanging. The man accused contradicted that statement at every turn. Once again, the inspector and Jack Sheen went out to the chicken farm.
What are you up to?
Give me a boost up onto the table.
Okay. Now what?
I'm not going to hang myself. Come on up. I think it'll hold both of us.
All right. Here I come. Huh. Not the safest perch in the world. Okay, now what?
Look here. Along the beam.
What a filthy animal. Didn't Smith ever clean his place?
Maybe it's just as well he never did.
Yeah. Look, I don't get it.
He said a dozen times he found her hanging. If a rope passed over this beam, as Smith maintains...
The dust up here would show the marks.
You see any marks, old boy?
Not a thing. Not even a bit of rope fiber.
Sir Harold is right. No death by strangulation. Not by any rope which passed over this beam. I wonder how friend Smith is...
Smith did his best to explain the matter. In fact, he did a trifle better than his best. That's possible.
The rope must have caught in the joists. She didn't weigh very much.
And by the way, where is the rope?
I burned it. It gave me the willies.
What kind of rope was it?
Ordinary hemp rope.
Not sash cord?
No, hemp.
What did you intend it for?
Oh, no special purpose. You always have rope around a farm.
Inspector Caswell reminded Mr. Smith quite tersely.
Hemp rope leaves its fibers caught in rough wood when it's passed over the wood. There's no sign of fibers, or any mark in the dust.
Well, then the dust settled back after I took her down.
How did you take her down?
I lifted her with one arm and freed the rope with the other.
Now, let's go back to the beginning, Smith. When did you first see her that night?
Oh, she came to the gate. It was locked. She called. I let her in. We argued. Then we made up, and I went to tell Nancy. When I came back...
Hadn't you better keep the story straight, Smith?
That is the story.
You said before you cut her down. You told Mr. Sheen you left the gate open because finding it closed upset her always.
Then I made a mistake.
Oh, you made a mistake, all right. You made your story much too involved. You see, the laboratory has reported on your shoes. Not only are there no bits of glass in them, proving you did not step on them, but there are traces of lipstick on one and traces of contact with human skin on both. I submit, and I shall so state to the jury at your trial, that you attacked the girl with force and violence, that you smashed her glasses on the table, that you beat and kicked her into insensibility and death. Your story tripped you, and the laboratory did the rest. I'd say, Smith, next time, keep it simple. But I doubt if there'll be any next time for you.
Well, today, those spectacles can be seen in the Black Museum.
Orson Welles will be back with you in just a moment. Now here in person is Orson Welles.
Exactly how Daisy Oliver met her death was never brought out, not even at the trial. Whether Ron Smith beat her to death or whether she fell to her death, no one knows. But she was murdered, and by Ron Smith. There's no reasonable doubt about that. Nor was there any doubt about this man's character. Not only did he write of his concern over her disappearance to Daisy's mother, not only did he write long, endearing love letters to a girl he knew was dead, but from his cell, as he awaited trial, he sent a wreath to her funeral, palm leaves and one lily, with the phrase attached, "Until we meet again." I wonder if they ever did meet again. Well, until next time, till we meet in the same place and I tell you another story about the Black Museum, I remain as always obediently yours. This is Orson Welles, speaking from London. The Black Museum. Here, in the grim stone structure on the Thames, which houses Scotland Yard, is a warehouse of homicide. A warehouse where everyday objects, a tallow candle, for example, a mounted cat, an andiron, all are touched by murder. A bedsheet. It's a familiar object. You see them every night, except on rare occasions when you're roughing it. Linen is the usual material. Sometimes they're made of silk. This one is linen. It bears the imprint of the steamship Bengal Tower.
May I make up your bed, Miss Parsons? Certainly, stewardess. We're on our way, aren't we? Yes, miss. That's the last we'll see of Cape Town. I'll just change your sheets, miss. Thank you. Fresh ones for the first night out.
Today, that bedsheet can be seen in the Black Museum.
From the annals of the Criminal Investigation Department of the London Police, we bring you the dramatic stories of the crimes recorded by the objects in Scotland Yard's Gallery of Death, the Black Museum.
Well, here we are. The Black Museum. Scotland Yard's very special, very particular museum of murder. If you're a student of criminology, a student with some imagination, I don't think you'll be alone here in the Black Museum. Each small card, meant solely to identify crime and criminal, will bring to life for you a sinister ghost, and you'll walk here attended simultaneously by killer and killed. Here's a long-necked chemist's flask. It was meant to hold life-giving medicine, but somebody intervened. There was acid in this flask. A few pellets dropped in, dissolved. The flask was smoky with lethal vapor. Sleeping man died. Here's a bicycle made for fun, but notice the wheels, the crumpled spokes, crushed tires. A girl rode this bike downhill, and a wire was stretched across the roadway. Here we are, the sheets. A common, everyday bed sheet stamped in one corner, SS Bengal Tower. That's a luxury liner on the route between Cape Town and Southampton. It's a nice ship, and a voyage to enjoy, particularly when you're young and homeward bound. Natalie Parsons was young and homeward bound, and very lovely. The first night out, there were 2 gentlemen friends to dance attendance.
Thank you, Miss Parsons. You make even a lieutenant's life a pleasure.
Why, Lieutenant, I thought the Navy was the life for a young man with adventure in his soul.
Well, that's just the legend, but all legends come to an end. Just like the dancing tonight.
Mr. Morrow holding the fort at our table all alone. Let's be nice to him, Lieutenant. I hear he knows the captain of our ship.
The dancing was over in the main salon. The orchestra retired for the night. High above the brilliantly illuminated decks on the dim, binnacle-lighted bridge, Captain Booth had his own thoughts as he paced away his watch.
Ought to be all right. Full passenger list, decent crew, engines in good shape, ship all squared away topside and below. You never know. That's the worry and the fascination of it. You never know.
No, Captain. You never know, do you? You never know. But such thoughts are ridiculous. Look at the 3 people at that table near the bar in the first-class lounge this minute. The Parsons girl. Actress, the passenger list says. The naval lieutenant. What was his name? Jeff Hennessy, that's it. And Noel Morrow. Past middle-aged, but quite distinguished. Heavy stockholder in the line which owns your Bengal Tower. Nice people having a fine time.
And this, gentleman, concludes our performance for this evening.
Oh, but it's early yet, Miss Parsons.
Well, I'm not used to the sea air, Lieutenant. I'm tired, so I'm going to bed. And thank you both for a lovely first night at sea.
May I see you to your cabin?
Hold on, I claim that privilege. You dance with her all evening, son. Now it's my turn.
Oh, don't fight, gentlemen. Well, not the first night out, anyway. I think we'll accede to Noel's wish tonight, Jeff. He has some basis to his claim, you know.
There you are, young fellow.
Well, I surrender. There's plenty of time to Southampton, and lots of moonlight.
Yes, plenty of time for fun and enjoyment and even playing at love as the great ship knifes through the tropic seas northward, homeward bound. So Noel Morrow walks Natalie Parsons to her cabin and returns to the bar for a nightcap with Lieutenant Jeff Hennessy.
To Natalie, a nice girl.
I'll drink to that. A fine talent, I hear.
Yes, I saw in a play in Johannesburg, 3-Cornered Moon.
Huh?
Very amusing.
That's so. Well, I never heard of it. Still, I'm glad I heard of Natalie Parsons. Nice girl.
Good looking, too.
Yes, all of that and more. Well, here's to a pleasant voyage.
2 gentlemen converse over whiskey and soda, and then repair to their respective quarters and fall asleep. 2 a.m. 4 bells. On the bridge, the watch is changing.
First officer reporting relieving, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Forsyth. We're making 15 knots, course 348. All quite below.
Thank you, sir. I took the liberty of checking before I came topside. The watchmen are ringing their stations, sir. Stewards and stewardesses turn in, sir.
Very well, mister. Take over. Carry on.
North-northeast, roughly, is the course. The ship moves on. The captain goes to his cabin. First Officer Forsyth and the quartermaster stand to on the bridge. All quiet. Below on B deck, the watchman makes his rounds.
That's a funny one. B-24 ringing for steward and stewardess both. We'll have a look.
What is it, man?
Is something wrong, sir?
Nothing's wrong, why?
Both your buzzers are ringing, sir. For your steward and stewardess both.
There must be a mistake. Everything here is fine.
The watchman is puzzled. He goes back. The buzzers have stopped. He checks the cabin list. B-24. Miss Natalie Parsons. He hesitates. Back to the cabin or up to the bridge? Was it a mistake he chose the bridge?
What is it, Peter?
B-24's a ladies' cabin. Single occupied, Mr. Forsyth.
Is it now?
Buzzers was ringing. I answered. A man came to the door. All I did see of him was his trouser leg and shoe. Black, both of them.
Well, strange things can happen on shipboard on a cruise like this, you know. You just go on with your rounds and fill out your report when you go off watch.
Yes, sir. Very well, sir.
In a few moments, I'll go below and check. Want to make sure, meet me at B24 at 5 bells.
Aye, sir. Thank you, sir.
Strange things do happen on shipboard, even without tropic seas and a voyage home. Quite strange things. 5 bells. 2:30. First Officer Forsyth, with Watchman Petrie at his elbow, knocked discreetly on the door to B24.
Unlocked, is it? Careless.
So it seems, sir.
Swing your torch in here, Petrie.
Aye, sir.
Nobody here. Cabin's empty. All right, Petrie. Make your report. I'll enter this on the log. We'll let it go at that. Girls will be girls, Petrie. I trust you haven't forgotten that.
Discreet fellow, that first officer, but then he'd had plenty of cruise experience. He noted the matter in the log. After all, he had left the bridge for a few moments. And that was all. Now, it happens that one of the duties of the first officer is to call the roll at boat drill. You know how that goes. The bells clang all over the ship. The passengers joke as they reach for life belts dusty with disuse and scramble to the boat deck at the stations noted on their cabin doors. And after a bit, the first officer comes around and checks the roll.
Yes, I know. I quite agree, yeah. Answer to your names, please, ladies and gentlemen. This is a boat station for cabins B18 to B45. All passengers and crew assigned here will answer. Mr. Ainsworth?
Here.
Alan Birch?
Here, sir.
Miss Lawrence?
Here.
Mr. Leary?
Present.
Nancy Meadows?
Yes, sir.
Major Norton?
Here.
Miss Parsons? Miss Parsons? Miss Parsons!
The first officer reported to Captain Booth. Captain Booth thought it might be courteous if Miss Parsons were under the weather to pay her a courtesy call. Captain knocked.
Empty. Strange. Stewardess? Stewardess!
Yes, sir? You wanted me, Captain?
I do. You see Miss Parsons this morning?
No, sir, I haven't. It's a little queer, rather.
How so?
Well, she wasn't at boat drill either, sir, and her night things are missing.
You laid them out last night, did you?
Yes, sir. Pretty things, too. Just right for her. But not a sign of them this morning, and stains all over the sheet.
How's that? Where?
Here, sir. Sort of red and a few black ones, sir. Streaks like.
I see. Just a moment. There are times when I'm glad first-class cabins have telephones. This is the captain speaking. I want Dr. Stout in B24 at once. Thank you.
You don't think something's happened, do you, sir? She's such a nice girl.
That's what everyone says. Funny goings-on in here last night. Watchman's report, a log. Notice anything else peculiar here this morning, stewardess?
Well, yes, sir. When I came in to straighten up, first off, I noticed the porthole, sir. Swinging open it was all by itself. I fastened it before anything, sir.
Yes, that's right.
You called for me, Captain?
Yes, Doctor. Take a look at the stains on that sheet, will you?
Right.
All right, stewardess, you can go, but stay on call.
Yes, sir, I'll be right outside.
And send in the watchman.
Yes, sir.
Well, Doctor?
These are probably lipstick. The other red spots, they look like blood, I'm afraid. I'll tell better after I've run a test. The black marks beat me.
Not a very pleasant prospect. Blood on the sheet and an open porthole.
Watchman Petrie, Captain.
Ah, yes, don't go, Doctor. Now, see here, Petrie. This man you reported speaking to last night. Did you see his face?
Sorry, sir, I didn't. Only his trouser and one shoe, like I told Mr. Forsyth.
I see. It's too bad. What about his voice?
It was muffled, sir, by the door. But he did have, a kind of accent, sir.
What kind? American? Welsh? Scots? Irish?
If anything, it was Scotch, sir.
All right. Dismissed.
Thank you, sir.
Well, Doctor?
I don't like the looks of it. I'd seal this cabin and notify owners if I were you.
I'll do that and more. This is the captain. Give me the bridge. Watch officer, please. Hello, Mr. Matson, Captain Booth here. I want a complete search of the ship at once for a passenger. Natalie Parsons. Crow's Nest a block hole. And, put the ship about, mister. We're going back on a sea search as well. Calculate our position at 4 bells this morning. I'll be topside directly. We're not going to find her alive, you know, Doctor. But we've got to have a look.
I know.
If this girl went through that porthole alive, the sharks have got her by now. If she went through dead, we have a murderer aboard. As I said before, not a very pleasant prospect, Doctor.
No, it didn't look so pleasant. An empty cabin, an open porthole, and blood on the sheet. And I'd remind you that that sheet today can be seen in the Black Museum.
Do you gentlemen have anything to add? Have you, gentlemen?
Neither of them did. But in Southampton, the Criminal Investigation Department did have a few items to add.
All right, Hobson. What's the report on this Parsons girl?
Well, exactly what she said she was, Inspector. Actress.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently quite well accepted in Joburg. Plenty of men at the stage door, so to speak. Age, 25. Never a touch of scandal. 2 points.
Yeah?
She was in the Army Intelligence during the war. Had languages. Good actress. Quite a help.
Oh, possibly in Secret Service nowadays.
No, I called the special branch on that. Positively no. She's back in civil life completely.
Oh, well, that's a possible theory down the drain.
Yes, sir.
Well, you had 2 points, Sergeant.
Yes, sir. The other is, she said she left Joburg for a theatre job here. Well, there's no sign of it, sir. No manager in England has signed her, though some of them knew the name.
Oh, we'll keep after that. Oh, how about the passenger and crew list? Anyone familiar?
No, not a criminal record in the lot. And we've checked all 368 of them.
All right, Sergeant. Well, keep after that theatre job angle. Meanwhile, alert the technicians and the harbour police. We'll be going aboard that ship before the pilot takes her over.
The ship with a sealed cabin drew nearer to home. Somehow the festive quality of a voyage home was missing. Tension settled over the Bengal Tower, from the bridge to the boiler room. At long, long last, the anchor dropped into Southampton water. The passengers gathered to watch for the pilot boat.
That's no pilot boat, is it, Halsey?
Police launch.
I expected as much.
Funny. You dance with a girl, you know her for 8-10 hours out of your life. She stays with you.
It happens, son. She was a lovely thing. Don't fall in love with a ghost. You wind up rather lonely, you know.
Thanks. I'll remember that. Quite a few of them coming aboard.
Yes, we're in for a going over, apparently.
The captain spoke to the passengers and crew of the public address system.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, representatives of the Southampton police have come aboard to proceed with the necessary inquiry into the tragic disappearance of one of our fellow passengers. Until this inquiry has run its course, it'll be necessary to lie off and not to proceed ashore. Your cooperation will be greatly appreciated, and I'm sure you realize that all which can be done is being done to place you ashore as soon as possible. Thank you.
I wish them luck. How I wish them luck.
On B-deck, Inspector Rice took over from a greatly relieved Captain Booth. No time was wasted.
Set up a lab in the ship's pharmacy. Get at those stains. Compare them with the girl's lipstick and get the blood type. And find out what's in those black markings.
Yes, sir.
Now strip the bed and go through her things top to bottom. Now, I want to talk to the watchman, the stewardess. And from what you say, Captain, the man in here that night had a Scots accent.
That's correct.
Well, how many Scotsmen aboard? Have you checked that?
We have. 26, Inspector. 18 passengers, 8 in the crew.
Oh, very good, sir. You have been thorough. Now, you, I take it, are the watchmen.
They worked quickly, but they worked thoroughly. The watchman and the stewardesses reasserted their statements to the captain with one addition.
Oh, yes, sir. I cleaned the cabin thoroughly. Wiped everything.
That was too bad. No chance now for fingerprints. In the improvised laboratory in the ship's pharmacy, they did better.
The lipstick stains matched the lipstick in her luggage exactly, sir.
The blood type on that spotted sheet?
Type O, sir. The girl's army record gives the same type.
Meanwhile, information arrived from ashore.
She had a job waiting for her, Inspector, at the Abbey Theatre in Dublin, sir.
And then the police chemist came up with a long-awaited answer.
The black streaks on the sheet, sir. Lamp black wax and petroleum oil. That's shoe polish. But there's a trace of silver polish mixed in, sir.
Ah, now we've got something, Hobson.
Yes, sir, but what?
Well, who'd get silver polish on his boots aboard ship, Sergeant?
Well, it's a weird combination, sir.
A ship steward, Hobson. A steward with a Scots accent. Now, let's see the captain, shall we?
I'll cooperate in any way I can, Inspector. But even if it is one of my men, there's not a thing to tie any of them to the incident.
Well, sir, I have an idea. We can let the passengers ashore now, but hold the crew. Then you invite the police detail and the ship's officers to luncheon. Set up 4 tables well apart, waited on by the 4 stewards you say are Scots-born. At the end of the meal... Thank you, steward. I will have some more coffee. Now, as I was saying, gentlemen, it's practically over. That one fingerprint on the glass of the porthole will hang the man. No question about it. They always forget something, make at least one silly mistake. There'll be a ship's mechanic from our harbour police aboard.
All right, young fella. You can stop polishing that porthole cover now.
What's the meaning of this? I'm doing my job.
There's no fingerprint on the glass. You fell for the inspector's plan. I'll have to take you in charge. Willful murder on suspicion. And I must warn you, anything you say may be taken down in writing.
They smoked him out all right, but he refused to give in without a struggle. It was interesting to watch his mind work as they questioned him.
You're Alan Burt.
I am.
Your first trip aboard the Bengal Tower?
Round trip. Went out in her. This is the return.
Like the ladies, do you?
They seem to like me.
Ever had any trouble with one before?
No, never. What do you mean, before?
Your forearms, Burt, and your neck, all scratched.
No dame ever scratched me.
Oh, where did you get them, then?
Ship's cat. I tried to pet her. She let me have it.
It won't wash, Burt. No cat's claws ever scratched like that. Ship's doctor will certify to that. And those scratches aren't old enough to have happened ashore.
All right, then. It was a woman.
Huh?
A stewardess.
Which one?
I'm not saying. She'd lose her job.
Nonsense. Who are you protecting, Burt?
Nobody.
Stop it, Burt. You're only making it harder for yourself. You were on duty for that cabin, among others. She rang. From the watchman's story, the buzzer was stuck. But you didn't realize it until he knocked on the door and spoke to you. You went to B-24, forced your way in, attacked the girl, and when she resisted, you killed her and pushed her through that porthole. Wasn't that the way it was, Burt?
I'll never attack nobody.
We say you did. There's blood on the sheet. Her blood. We'll find it on your clothes, too.
I never attacked her. We had a date. After she ditched the 2 jokers she was dancing and drinking with.
Be careful what you say, Birch. It's all being taken down and may be used in evidence.
I'm telling the truth. I didn't kill her. I was waiting in the cabin like she said. When she came in, she changed her mind or something. She tried to push me out. I don't take that from no woman. I grabbed her. She fell against me. She was foaming at the mouth in a sort of fit. She collapsed. I put her on the bed, tried to give her artificial respiration. That's how the black got on the sheet, maybe.
Probably. Go on, Bert.
When that fool Petrie came to the door, I lost my head. She looked dead. I didn't know what. I locked the door. I couldn't find no heartbeat. Nothing. I figured Petrie would report to the bridge. I picked her up and pushed her out of the porthole.
Why did you decide to tell this tale, Bert?
Because you'd pin it on me anyway. I know coppers. So better than have yous cook it up, you got it my way. I didn't kill nobody here. I didn't kill nobody.
Stanley Birch had told his story. Not a very good story. For there, in contradiction, was the testimony and evidence, including that blood-stained bedsheet, which you can see today in the Black Museum. Stuart Birch was a ladies' man. There was no doubt about that after the evidence was in. The jury had little doubt either. They convicted Mr. Birch of first-degree murder, despite his protestations, and despite the fact that for the first time in 200 years, a jury had been given a homicide case without a corpus delicti. This was a major aspect of the case, a very interesting one, I think. And further, just after the conviction, the House of Commons suspended the death penalty in England. As for Stuart Birch, you'll find him spending the rest of his natural life in Dartmoor prison. And as for the spotted bedsheet, it remains in its customary place in Scotland Yard, in the Black Museum.
And now, until we meet next time, the same place, I tell you another story about the Black Museum. I remain, as always, obediently yours.
That was a sample of the Black Museum on Airchecks. Well, that's it for this week of Airchecks, and we will be playing more of Orson Welles in next week's episode. Airchecks is a 3-hour podcast uploaded every Saturday and broadcast on the K-Tai Radio Network every Sunday. See you at the same time and same channel.